Welcome to this story, where we enter a peaceful village, guided by the steady rhythm of a candle maker's craft. In a warm workshop, the soft flicker of candlelight casts gentle shadows, and the sweet scent of melting beeswax fills the air. The craftsman works with careful precision, trimming wicks and smoothing the surfaces of freshly made candles, each one promising warmth and comfort to those who will light it. Outside, the moonlight bathes the village in silver, while the quiet rustling of leaves and distant calls of nocturnal creatures create a peaceful lullaby. As the candlemaker continues his work, the room is filled with calm, inviting you to slow your breath and sink into relaxation. Imagine the soft glow of these candles soon to illuminate homes, providing gentle light and comfort as families gather, ready to embrace restful sleep. This scene unfolds a tranquil journey, allowing you to drift into serenity under the steady hands of the candlemaker. Welcome to this story, where we find ourselves in the tranquil setting of a small, humble workshop as the sun begins its descent. The air is rich with the scent of melting beeswax, the warmth of a crackling fire, and the comforting smell of tallow, all blending together in this peaceful corner of the village. As you enter, you see the candlemaker, his hands, weathered by years of practice, moving with steady, deliberate care, preparing his materials for the evening's work. The flickering light of the hearth casts long, soft shadows on the wooden beams of the ceiling, while the rhythmic sound of wicks being dipped into molten wax fills the room like a quiet lullaby. Outside, the last rays of sunlight dance over the rooftops, and the sky shifts into deep hues of pink and lavender, signaling the arrival of twilight. The candlemaker's workshop becomes a sanctuary of soft illumination, where each carefully crafted candle is born from the hands of this humble artisan. He dips the braided wicks into the golden wax, repeating the motion with a patient rhythm that feels timeless, almost meditative. As the wax cools and solidifies into smooth, slender pillars of light, a sense of calm pervades the space, wrapping around you like a soft blanket. The quiet crackle of the fire blends with the faint sound of the village settling into the evening distant footsteps, the rustle of leaves, and the occasional chirp of birds retreating for the night. The candlemaker pauses now, and then to adjust the wicks, ensuring each one is trimmed to perfection. With every movement, there is a deliberate intention, a quiet satisfaction in the craft. The workshop, bathed in the golden glow of the candles he creates, feels like an oasis of peace in an ever-moving world. As you watch, the soft glow of the candles begins to fill the room, casting a warm and inviting light that seems to push back the shadows of the evening. This moment, suspended between day and night, holds a quiet magic and unspoken promise that even in the simplest of tasks, there is beauty and purpose. The candlemaker steps back, his eyes reflecting the soft light of the flames he has carefully nurtured. The last of the daylight fades, leaving only the gentle embrace of candlelight in the room. Outside, the moon rises slowly, casting its silver glow over the village, while the stars begin to twinkle softly in the clear sky. The candlemaker's hands move with gentle ease, placing the finished candles in neat rows, their flickering light soon to offer warmth and comfort to the homes of the villagers. Each candle is not just a source of light, but a small beacon of hope and safety, a simple object carrying within it a promise of warmth against the cold and a light to guide those who seek it. As the evening deepens and the village becomes still, the workshop remains a beacon of warmth, its flickering light a gentle invitation to pause, breathe, and let go of the day's worries. The scent of beeswax and tallow fills the air, and the rhythmic sound of the fire, crackling softly against the stones of the hearth, lulls you into a state of relaxation. The candlemaker continues his work, each motion as deliberate and steady. As the last, creating more candles, each one destined to bring light to someone's home. The quiet dance of shadows on the walls feels like a natural lullaby, coaxing the mind toward rest. As the last candle is placed upon the shelf, the workshop seems to take on a sense of completion, the work for the day done. The candle maker steps back and surveys his handiwork, a small smile playing at the corners of his lips. In this space, time seems to slow, and the peaceful rhythm of life continues uninterrupted as the evening settles in. The fire burns low, and the room fills with a warm golden light that feels like a comforting embrace. The village outside is quiet now, with only the occasional rustle of leaves in the breeze or the soft hoot of an owl breaking the silence. Inside, the workshop feels like a world apart, a place where the simple act of creating light becomes an act of care and love. The candle maker stands still for a moment, his gaze soft as he looks out the window toward the darkening sky, the moon now high above. In this moment of stillness, everything feels in its place, and you are invited to take a deep breath, to let go of any lingering thoughts, and to embrace the calm that fills the room. As the candles flicker gently, casting their soft light on the walls, you begin to feel your own body relax, your mind slowing down, and your breath deepening. Here, in the warmth and comfort of the candle maker's workshop, you are held in a space of peace, where time stretches and the world outside feels distant and unhurried. The night has arrived, and in the quiet flicker of candlelight, there is nothing to do but be, to rest in the gentle embrace of this simple, enduring craft. Welcome back to this tranquil story, where the evening deepens further, and the village outside the candle maker's workshop has fully embraced the quiet of the night. Inside, the soft, flickering light of the candles fills the room with a warmth that contrasts the coolness of the world outside. The rhythmic sound of the fire crackling in the hearth, combined with the delicate scrape of wax against the tools, creates a comforting symphony that wraps around you like a gentle lullaby. The air in the workshop is thick with the sweet scent of beeswax, and the warmth of melting tallow mixes with the earthy fragrance of the wood fire, enveloping the space in a cocoon of calm. The candle maker, his hands steady and sure, continues his work with quiet devotion, dipping each wick into the molten wax, allowing the delicate strands of flax to become encased in the warm, golden glow. Each motion is measured and purposeful, as if time itself has slowed to match the rhythm of the craft. The candles take shape slowly, their slender forms emerging from the wax as they grow with each careful dip. With each flicker of the flame from the hearth, the shadows in the room shift and dance, moving in sync with the candle maker's hands. Outside the window, the world is still only the occasional rustle of leaves in the gentle evening breeze, or the soft calls of owls can be heard. The moon has risen higher now, casting a silver light over the quiet rooftops, while the stars twinkle faintly in the vast, dark sky, their distant glow a gentle reminder of the peaceful solitude of the night. The candle maker pauses now, and then to inspect the candles, ensuring the wicks are evenly spaced and that each one is perfectly shaped. There is no rush in his work. Every action is taken with care and a quiet respect for the craft. The wax pools around the wicks like liquid gold, and the surface of the candles smooths out as they cool, becoming solid and strong, yet soft in their glow. The rhythmic dip of the wick into the wax, the soft crackle of the fire, and the subtle scrape of the candle maker's tools on the wooden workbench create a peaceful, meditative atmosphere that invites you to slow your breath and relax your body. Each candle he creates holds more than just light. It carries a promise of warmth, safety, and comfort for those who will use it. It is a small beacon in the darkness, a steady glow that provides not only physical light, but a sense of peace in a sometimes chaotic world. As the evening stretches on, The candle maker continues his work, unaffected by the passing hours. The last rays of daylight have long since disappeared, leaving only the soft glow of candlelight and the steady flicker of the hearth. The candles grow in number, their delicate forms now filling the room, standing silently on the wooden shelves, waiting to fulfill their purpose. The quiet hum of the evening fills the workshop, as if the very air is infused with a sense of contentment. The candle maker's hands never falter, his steady movements a testament to his dedication to the craft. Outside, the village is calm. The only sounds the occasional chirp of crickets or the distant murmur of a stream. The world feels far away, and inside the workshop there is only the soft warmth of the fire, the steady rhythm of dipping wicks, and the quiet glow of the candles as they slowly take shape. The room is bathed in amber light, and the shadows dance along the walls, stretching and shrinking with the flickering of the flames. As the final candles are placed on the shelves, the candle maker steps back, wiping his hands on his apron as he surveys his work. The room is now filled with the promise of warmth, the flicker of the flames, a quiet assurance that there will always be light in the dark. Each candle holds within it the hope of a brighter tomorrow, the small but meaningful contribution of the candle maker to his village, offering comfort and light to those who need it. Outside, the stars twinkle brightly, and the moon casts a pale light over the peaceful village. The night has fully settled in, and inside the workshop, the fire burns low, casting a soft glow over the workbench. The candle maker, having completed his task, takes a moment to rest, his eyes reflecting the satisfaction of a job well done. In this quiet space, time has no hold, and there is only the soft rhythm of his work, the crackling of the fire, and the steady light of the candles that now fill the room. Each candle is a small act of love and care, a quiet reminder of the power of simplicity and the importance of craftsmanship. The candle maker's work is complete for the day, but the light he has created will continue to flicker long into the night, bringing warmth and comfort to the homes of those who will use them. And as the evening draws to a close, the peaceful solitude of the workshop remains, a place where the steady hands of the candle maker continue to create, bringing light and warmth to the world one candle at a time. As the night deepens further, the candle maker's hands continue their steady rhythm, each movement precise, each action guided by years of experience and a deep, unwavering commitment to the art of candle making. The workshop remains a peaceful sanctuary, its quiet beauty illuminated by the soft, golden glow of countless candles that now rest upon the shelves. The air is rich with the comforting scent of beeswax, mingling with the faint, smoky aroma of the small hearth fire still crackling gently in the corner. Outside, the world is blanketed in darkness, but inside, there is only light, warm, soft, flickering light that dances across the walls and ceiling, casting gentle shadows that seem to breathe with the passing moments. The candle maker moves, with quiet grace, his hands working instinctively as they trim wicks and smooth the surfaces of the candles. Each one is a small work of art, crafted with care and precision, destined to bring comfort and warmth to the homes of the villagers who rely on them. His steady hands do not falter, each motion a small act of dedication to his craft. The candles, now taking their final shape, rest in neat rows on the wooden shelves, their flickering flames offering the promise of light in the darkness. There is no hurry in the workshop, no rush to finish. The candle maker works at his own pace, knowing that each candle must be perfect before it is ready to fulfill its purpose. The soft crackle of the fire and the gentle snip of the scissors are the only sounds that break the silence, creating a peaceful rhythm that fills the room and invites the mind to relax. The flickering light casts a warm, golden hue over the wooden beams above, and the shadows on the walls seem to move in time with the candlemaker's steady movements. The candles themselves, now fully formed, are small symbols of warmth and light waiting to be carried out into the world where they will provide comfort to those in need. As the candlemaker takes a moment to step back and admire his work, a sense of satisfaction fills the room. Each candle is a product of patience, skill, and love, crafted by hands that have honed their craft over countless hours. The flickering flames, though small, hold within them the power to transform the darkness into light, to chase away the cold, and bring a sense of peace and tranquility to those who light them. The moon outside is high in the sky now. It's pale, light casting a soft glow over the village. The stars twinkle faintly, their distant light mingling with the gentle flicker of the candles inside the workshop. It is a peaceful, serene night, and inside the candlemaker's workshop, time seems to slow. The steady rhythm of his work continues, each candle a small act of creation, a moment of quiet beauty that will soon bring warmth to the hearts of those who use them. The candles, though simple in form, are imbued with a sense of purpose and meaning. They are more than just sources of light. They are symbols of care, comfort, and the gentle rhythm of daily life. As the candlemaker's hands continue to work, the workshop remains a sanctuary of calm, where the steady flicker of flame and the rhythmic sound of tools are the only distractions. Outside, the village lies in stillness, its houses dark and quiet, but inside the workshop, there is life quiet, steady, and full of purpose. The candlemaker's hands never falter, never rush, as they shape the final candles, ensuring that each one is perfect before it is placed on the shelf. The wax cools slowly, hardening into smooth, cylindrical forms, each one a work of art in its own right. The process is slow, deliberate, and filled with a quiet beauty that mirrors the simplicity of the task. There is no need for hurry, no rush to finish. Each candle is a small, perfect moment in time, a testament to the craftsmanship and dedication of the candlemaker. As the final candle is placed on the shelf, the room feels complete, bathed in the soft glow of the flickering flames. The world outside remains quiet, the stars still twinkling above, but inside the workshop, there is a sense of peace and fulfillment. The candlemaker steps back from his work, wiping his hands on his apron, and takes a deep breath. The work for the night is done, and the candles now rest, ready to be carried out into the world where they will fulfill their purpose. The flickering flames cast long shadows, and the warm golden light fills the room, offering a sense of comfort and tranquility that can only come from the steady, loving work of the candlemaker's hands. With the final task complete, the candle maker takes a moment to reflect on the quiet beauty of his work. The candles, though simple, have the power to change the atmosphere of a room, to bring warmth and comfort to those who need it. It is a humble craft, yet one that holds deep significance, a quiet reminder that even the smallest acts of care can bring light to the world. The workshop, now filled with the soft glow of the candles, feels like a haven, a place where time slows, and the quiet rhythm of craftsmanship creates a sense of peace that extends beyond the walls of the room. The night is deepening outside, the world quiet and still, but inside the workshop there is light, warmth, and the promise of a restful night ahead. The candlemaker's work is done for the day, but the glow of his candles will continue to shine long after the workshop is closed for the night. And as the moon hangs high in the sky, casting its pale light over the village, the soft flicker of the candles remains, a gentle reminder of the power of quiet, steady craftsmanship and the warmth that comes from creating something with care and love. The candlemaker continues his work in the quiet solitude of his workshop, each task moving forward with the unhurried rhythm of a man at peace with the world around him. The day has drawn to a close, and with the village outside settling into awe. Silence. The air in the workshop grows still, save for the soft sounds of his movements and the occasional crackle from the hearth. Each candle he shapes is a promise of light, crafted with steady hands that have performed this dance of creation countless times before. His fingers move expertly over the wax, shaping each wick, dipping it into the molten beeswax with precision, and then carefully letting it cool before repeating the process again. The process is repetitive, yet each cycle holds the weight of tradition, of countless generations that have come before him, all performing the same humble task with pride and dedication. As the final candle forms, the room begins to fill with a soft, golden glow. The flickering flames cast their comforting light upon the walls, dancing in rhythm with the steady work of the candlemaker's hands. His work does not rush, and nor does he. Time, in this space, seems to move slowly, each moment stretching into another, creating an atmosphere of calm and contemplation. Outside, the village remains in peaceful slumber, the only sounds the distant wind rustling the leaves and the occasional call of a nocturnal bird. The world outside feels far away, as if it has no place in the small sanctuary of the workshop. Here, it is only the candlemaker and his craft, the soft, flickering light, and the soothing scent of beeswax filling the air. Each candle he creates is a silent promise to those who will light it, an assurance of warmth, comfort, and safety as they navigate the darkness of night. As the candlemaker pauses for a moment to survey his work, he admires the neat rows of candles now resting on the wooden shelves. Each one, though simple in appearance, holds a story within its waxy form. Some will light the way for travelers. Others will guide a family through a long winter evening. And still, others will offer a quiet, steady flame for those who find solace in its glow. These small, unassuming creations have more power than most people realize. The candlemaker understands this intimately. To him, each candle is more than just a tool for illumination. It is a symbol of hope, a vessel for light in a world that can often seem consumed by shadows. His work is an act of love and care, a way to bring warmth to others in a way that only he can. There is no rush in the candlemaker's world. No urgency. The world outside may be fast and noisy, but inside the workshop, time slows, allowing him to focus on each delicate task at hand. The act of crafting each candle is its own form of meditation, a practice of patience and precision. The steady rhythm of dipping and cooling, the flickering of flames, and the scent of wax all work together to create an atmosphere of calm. The candlemaker finds peace in this simplicity, a deep contentment that comes from knowing that his hands, though humble, are shaping something that will bring comfort to others. As the night stretches on, the candlemaker begins to feel the weight of the day lift from his shoulders. His body, though tired, is at ease. There is satisfaction in this work, a quiet joy that comes from knowing that each candle is a small act of kindness, a gift that will be shared with those who need it most. The steady glow of the candles creates a sense of warmth and safety in the room, a sharp contrast to the cool, silent world outside. As the workshop becomes bathed in the soft, flickering light, the candlemaker knows that this is where he belongs, where time moves slowly, and each small action is a reminder of the beauty of creation. He takes a deep breath, inhaling the comforting scent of beeswax, and exhales slowly, releasing the tension of the day. With each movement, he feels more connected to the work he does and the people he does it for. His craft, though simple, is important, and he takes pride in knowing that the candles he creates will become a part of people's lives, offering warmth and light in the darkness. The candlemaker's work continues in this peaceful rhythm, each candle another small, beautiful creation that will soon find its place in the world. As the last candle forms and rests on the shelf, he steps back and surveys his work. The room is filled with a warm, golden glow, and the sense of peace that fills the space is palpable. The workshop, though small and simple, feels like a haven, a place where the worries of the world can be left at the door, and only the quiet beauty of creation remains. Outside, the moon shines brightly, casting its silver light over the village, while the stars twinkle faintly in the vast, dark sky. But inside the workshop, there is only warmth, light, and the soft glow of the candles, a comforting reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is always light to be found. The candle maker's work may be done for the night, but the light he has created will continue to burn, casting its gentle glow on the lives of others. Each flicker, each soft flame, is a testament to his quiet dedication and the power of light to guide and comfort in times of need. And as he sits back, taking a moment to enjoy the fruits of his labor, he knows that his work is far from over. There will always be more candles to make, more light to share, more moments of quiet beauty to create. But for now, he can rest, knowing that the world outside is just a little brighter because of the small acts of care and love that have filled his workshop tonight. As the village continues to sleep under the moon's gentle gaze, the candle maker remains in his workshop, the soft light of the candles casting a golden glow upon the walls. The quiet of the night wraps around him like a blanket, comforting and familiar. There's a certain magic in the air one that's not of grand gestures or soaring ambitions, but of simple, quiet moments. The rhythm of his work is like a heartbeat, steady and unbroken, each movement adding to the harmony of the night. His hands are steady as they dip the braided wicks once more into the warm beeswax, the liquid gold swirling around the fibers, enveloping them with warmth and substance. Each dip feels like a reaffirmation of his craft, a reminder of the generations that have come before him, each one learning the art of candle making in the quiet solitude of their own workshops. The wax flows smoothly over the wicks, hardening in the cool air, layer by layer, until the candles take shape. There is a certain satisfaction in this repetitive task, an unspoken connection between the maker and the creation. With each flick of the wrist, each delicate dip, he shapes the future of another flicker of light, a beacon that will soon chase away the darkness from some corner of the world. The soft crackling of the fire in the hearth adds a layer of sound to the otherwise silent space. It's a peaceful, soothing sound, one that blends with the faint hum of the evening wind outside, rustling through the trees, a sound that brings a sense of tranquility to the room. The fire, though small, provides enough warmth to ward off the coolness of the night, its crackles and pops offering a gentle lullaby that accompanies the candle maker's work. The smell of the beeswax and tallow fills the air, blending with the earthy scent of the wood in the beams above and the stone floor beneath. It's a smell that speaks of nature, of the bees who gave their wax, of the earth that provides the wood, of the fire that warms the room. It's a scent that carries a sense of timelessness, of something simple and pure, untainted by the complexities of the outside world. As the candle maker works, his mind wanders just slightly, reflecting on the simple beauty of the craft. The act of creating candles, he knows, may not seem like much to the world outside, but to him, it is everything. There is a deep satisfaction in making something that will be used, that will bring warmth, light, and comfort. His creations may be humble, but their value is immeasurable. These candles will light the homes of families, cast a warm glow on faces, and help people find their way in the darkness. Each one will become a part of someone's evening, a companion during moments of reflection, or perhaps a guide during late-night work. They will shine during meals, family gatherings, and prayers, offering more than just light. The candle maker's task is as much about creating light in the physical sense as it is about offering light in the emotional and spiritual sense. The flicker of a flame can be a reminder of hope, of endurance, of safety. The warmth of the light can offer comfort during long, cold nights, or can soothe the hearts of those in need of solace. His candles are more than just wax and wick. They are vessels for memories, emotions, and experiences. As the wax hardens and the candles begin to take form, the candle maker carefully inspects each one, ensuring the wicks are centered and that the candles are smooth and uniform. There is a small satisfaction in seeing the final product, each one standing proudly, ready to serve its purpose. He arranges them carefully on the wooden shelves that line the walls, each candle placed with intention, as though giving it the respect it deserves. The workshop, though humble, feels full of potential, each row of candles a promise of what they will soon bring to the world. With the final candle placed on the shelf, the candle maker steps back and takes a moment to look around. The room is bathed in a warm, golden glow, and he feels a sense of contentment, knowing that his work has meaning. The candles, now ready, will soon be distributed to the village, where they will provide the light needed to guide people through the night, just as the maker's own hands have guided them through the process of creation. There is peace in knowing that his work is appreciated, even if it goes unnoticed by most. The candle maker's life is one of quiet service, of offering his craft to others in a way that makes the world a little brighter, a little warmer. As he extinguishes the flame of the hearth and surveys his work one last time, the candle maker feels a deep sense of gratitude. The night is still young, and though the candles are done for the day, there is always more to be made, more light to be shared, more warmth to be given. In the calm of the workshop, surrounded by the soft flicker of his creations, he knows that this work, simple though it may seem, is something that matters. He has offered light, and that, in its purest form, is enough. And so the candle maker, content and at peace, steps away from his work, leaving the candles to shine quietly in the stillness of the night. The world outside may be dark, but here, in the small sanctuary of the workshop, there is light, there is warmth, and there is always the promise of more to come. The humble art of candle making continues, steady and unbroken with each flicker of the flame, a reminder that even the smallest acts can light the way for others. In the heart of the small village, as the first rays of dawn break over the horizon, the candle maker's workshop remains a quiet refuge from the bustling world outside. The faint smell of burning tallow mingles with the fresh morning air as he begins his work once more. His hands, familiar with the motions of their craft, move with practiced ease, dipping wicks into the waiting pool of molten wax. The steady rhythm of the task creates a sense of calm, a slow, deliberate pace that invites the mind to relax and the heart to steady. The flames of the hearth still burn low, providing just enough warmth to ward off the early chill, and the flickering light dances on the rough-hewn walls of the workshop, casting soft, comforting shadows that seem to breathe along with the candle maker's movements. The world outside, still wrapped in the softness of morning, seems distant and far removed from the focused world within the workshop. Here, time seems to slow, each moment drawn out in quiet reverence to the craft, and every movement imbued with purpose. The beeswax, carefully sourced and melted with great care, glows golden in the light of the fire. It is the first ingredient in the creation of something small yet profound, a light that will soon flicker in homes, casting its gentle glow to ward off the dark. As the candle maker continues his work, his mind drifts gently toward the process itself. Each step, though simple in appearance, is imbued with history, tradition, and care. The act of dipping the wick into the wax, letting it harden, and repeating the process again and again feels almost like a meditation. It's as though he's not just making candles. He's connecting to something deeper, something timeless that transcends the physicality of the task itself. He remembers the stories told by his elders, the candle makers who came before him, and he feels a sense of continuity, of belonging to a long line of artisans whose work has been passed down through generations. This quiet ritual, performed in solitude and peace, is a form of devotion to the craft, to the creation of something that will provide light, warmth, and comfort to others. As the wax solidifies, the candle maker's hands smooth over the surface, making each candle as perfect as it can be, mindful of every detail. The scent of beeswax fills the air, and the rhythmic sound of the wick being dipped into the wax becomes a comforting, repetitive melody that grounds him in the moment. He moves around the workshop with ease, arranging the candles neatly on wooden racks, each one now standing proudly, ready for its purpose. Outside, the sun rises higher, and the quiet hum of the village begins to stir as the world slowly awakens. The candle maker, however, remains in his steady rhythm, focused on the task at hand. His world is small, contained within the walls of his workshop, yet it feels vast in its simplicity. He knows that each candle he creates has a purpose, a life of its own once it leaves the workshop and enters the homes of the villagers. The flame, small though it may be, can light up a darkened room, cast a warm glow on a family gathered together, or provide a guiding light for someone walking through the night. As the candle maker reflects on this, he feels a quiet sense of fulfillment. There is no rush in his work. There is only the steady pace of creation, one dip, one wick, one candle at a time. With each completed candle, he feels more connected to the world around him, to the generations that have come before, and to the people who will soon benefit from his humble creations. His work is not grand in scale, but it is no less meaningful. The quiet act of making something by hand, of shaping a candle from wax and wick, is a profound act of care and dedication. The sun has risen fully now, and the light streams through the small window, casting long shadows on the wooden beams of the workshop. The candle maker takes a brief moment to step back and survey his work. The shelves are filled with rows of neatly arranged candles, their pale forms glowing faintly in the soft light. Each one, though identical in shape, feels unique, imbued with the care and attention given to its creation. The simplicity of the scene is almost poetic, a workshop filled with light, warmth, and the quiet satisfaction of a job well done. There is no need for words here, no need for grand gestures. The candles, in their simplicity, speak volumes. They represent not just the work of a single day, but the legacy of those who have spent their lives perfecting this craft. The candle maker, with his steady hands and patient heart, is a part of that legacy. He knows that the light he creates will soon illuminate the homes of others, providing them with comfort and warmth in the darkest hours. And in that, he finds contentment. As the day progresses, the candle maker continues his work, dipping wick after wick into the molten wax, creating one candle at a time. There is no hurry, no rush, just the steady rhythm of creation, the soft flicker of the fire, and the quiet hum of a life lived in service to light. The world outside may be bustling with activity, but in the workshop there is peace, there is purpose, there is light. And that, for the candle maker, is enough. As the hours unfold, the workshop remains a serene space where time seems to slow and the world outside drifts away, leaving only the rhythmic sounds of the candle maker's hands at work, the quiet crackle of the hearth, and the soft flickering of the candle flames that dance on the walls. The wax, now cooled and hardened, is a rich amber color, and the scent of beeswax fills the room, grounding the candle maker in a sense of continuity, of tradition. Outside, the day has stretched on, the sun now high in the sky, and yet, inside the workshop, the pace remains unchanged, steady, and deliberate. The soft tapping sound of scissors cutting the wicks echoes through the stillness, followed by the gentle scraping of the wax as he smooths each candle's surface to perfection. Each one, though seemingly simple, is an extension of his care, his craftsmanship. His hands move effortlessly, an extension of the countless hours spent honing his skills, each motion an echo of those who have crafted candles before him. The steady flow of time is marked not by the ticking of a clock, but by the completion of another candle, each creation standing as a quiet testament to his work and dedication. The village beyond remains a quiet backdrop, its life moving on. But here in the workshop, time passes differently. It feels suspended in the act of creation, as if the world outside the walls is distant and irrelevant. The workshop, with its worn wooden beams, its shelves lined with candles, and its flickering fire, is a world of its own. A world where every moment counts, where every movement has purpose, and where every candle is made with the intent to bring light into the lives of others. As the candle maker continues his task, his mind drifts toward the significance of his work. These candles, though small, have a larger purpose. They are not merely objects. They are symbols of warmth, of safety, of light. They will soon be carried to homes across the village, where they will stand as beacons in the dark, providing comfort to those who seek it. The glow of a candle is not just light, it is a promise. A promise that even in the darkest of times, there is light to be found. A promise that the night will not last forever, and that the warmth of a flame can chase away the coldest of fears. As he arranges the finished candles on the wooden racks, each one carefully placed and neatly aligned, the candle maker feels a deep sense of satisfaction. There is no rush in his work, no desire to finish quickly. His work is done slowly, steadily, with care. Each candle is a reflection of that care, a reflection of his own quiet dedication to his craft. There is a beauty in this process, a beauty that lies not in grand gestures or quick results, but in the slow, deliberate act of creation. He steps back and surveys the room, taking in the rows of candles that line the shelves. Each one stands as a symbol of his work, a symbol of his devotion to the craft that has sustained him for so many years. The soft light of the fire glints off the wax, casting a warm golden hue over the room. The candle maker pauses for a moment to take it all in. There is a deep sense of peace here, a peace that comes from knowing that his work is not just a job, but a calling. He is not just making candles. He is creating something that will bring comfort to others, something that will help them navigate the darkness. It is a humbling thought, and yet it is one that fills him with pride. As the afternoon passes into evening, the light outside begins to fade, and the village grows quiet. The candle maker's work continues, but now there is an added sense of urgency. The day is drawing to a close, and with it, his task is almost complete. The candles, now finished and placed in their neat rows, will soon be taken from the workshop, carried into the homes of the villagers who await them. Each one will bring a bit of light into the lives of those who need it most. The fire in the hearth crackles softly, the last embers of the day glowing faintly in the dimming light. The workshop is filled with a sense of quiet fulfillment, a feeling that comes from knowing that the work is done and that it has been done well. The candle maker steps back and takes a deep breath, the familiar scent of beeswax and tallow filling his senses. His hands, though worn from years of labor, feel steady and sure. He is content. There is no need for more. The world outside may continue to spin, but in this quiet workshop, the work is complete, and that is enough. The last candle, now finished, is carefully placed on the shelf, joining its brothers and sisters in the line. The task is done. The day is over. The candle maker's work, though humble and quiet, will continue to shine long after the last flame of his hearth has died. It is the work of generations past and it will be the work of generations to come. The soft glow of the candles will continue to warm homes, guide the lost, and provide comfort to those who seek it. The candle maker's hands, worn but steady, will continue to shape the light that will carry on for as long as the darkness remains. And so, as the evening settles in and the night grows still, the workshop falls quiet once more, its work complete, its purpose fulfilled, and its legacy sealed in the soft glow of 1,000 tiny flames. As twilight deepens into night, the workshop remains filled with the comforting hum of steady work, the flickering candle flames casting long, gentle shadows that seem to stretch across the wooden walls, a reflection of the passing of time. The air smells faintly of beeswax and tallow, and the warm glow of the fire crackling in the hearth blends harmoniously with the soft illumination of the candles, creating an ambiance of peace and quietude. Outside, the sounds of the village are muffled under the growing silence of nightfall. The candle maker moves with practiced care, his hands skillful as they finish trimming wicks and aligning the freshly completed candles on the wooden shelves. His work, though simple, has always carried a weight of importance far beyond its humble nature. Each candle is not merely a creation, but a promise of warmth, comfort, and a small yet significant light in the darkness. His steady hands, well versed in the motions of his craft, add the finishing touches to the candles, ensuring that they are perfect, ready to bring light to those who need it most. The last few hours of the day pass quietly, the soft scrape of his tools against the wax and the rhythmic movement of his hands being the only sounds that fill the space. The rhythmic tapping of scissors, cutting the wicks, sounds like a lullaby, its steady pulse calming the mind and easing the heart. There is a serenity in this space, a sense of purpose and contentment that fills the air with a deep, almost meditative calm. As the evening fades into darkness, the candle maker's movements become slower, more deliberate. There is no rush in his work, no need to hurry. Each candle he makes is an act of mindfulness, a moment of dedication to his craft, his community, and the tradition passed down to him by those who came before. The candles themselves seem to absorb the peace of the workshop, each one a tiny vessel of light waiting to be placed in a home where it will do its quiet work, warding off the chill of the night, offering a gentle glow that comforts and soothes. The candle maker's thoughts wander to the families who will soon take the candles home. Will they light them by the hearth to add warmth to their homes? Will they sit together, reading or sharing stories by the soft, flickering flame, letting the light from the candles fill the room with a sense of togetherness? Will the candles stand vigil at windows, their tiny flames providing the only light to guide the wayward traveler? The thought that his work will play such a part in these quiet moments fills him with a quiet pride. There is no grandeur in this, no fanfare. The work is simple, quiet, uncelebrated, yet it is integral to the lives of those it touches. His work has no immediate reward, no audience to witness the fruits of his labor, yet it brings something far more lasting and enduring warmth that transcends the fleeting moments of a single day. As the last candle is finished and placed carefully on the shelf, the candle maker takes a step back, surveying the rows of candles that line the walls. The workshop feels peaceful now, its work complete. The day's last light slips away, and the quiet night takes its place. The glow from the candles, gentle and steady, is the only illumination left in the room. It is a soft, golden light, a light that will continue to shine long after the candle maker's hands have rested. In the stillness, the candle maker reflects on the quiet satisfaction of his craft. There is a comfort in the rhythm of the work, in the steady flow of the hours as they pass, one by one. There is a beauty in the simplicity of the task, in the repetition of the motions that make up his day. Each dip of the wick into the molten wax, each careful shaping of the candle, Each trim of the wick is a part of a larger story, a story that has been told for generations, and one that will continue, to be told long after he is gone. The candle maker's thoughts are interrupted by a soft sigh, a reminder that the night is growing deeper and the day's work has come to a close. His work is done for the day. The candles are finished, the shelves are filled, and the workshop is quiet once more. Outside, the world continues its slow, steady march into the night. The moon, full and bright, casts a soft silver light over the village, while the stars twinkle in the vast, dark sky. It is a night like so many others, quiet and serene. A night that feels like a quiet promise that, no matter what happens, there is always light to be found in the darkness. The candle maker smiles to himself, the quiet contentment of a job well done filling him with a sense of peace. He knows that tomorrow will bring more work, more candles to be made. But for now, the quiet of the evening settles over him like a warm blanket. He extinguishes the fire in the hearth, leaving behind the soft, lingering glow of the candles. He steps back, taking one last look at the room, now bathed in the gentle light of his work. And as the door to the workshop closes behind him, he leaves the peaceful sanctuary of the room behind, knowing that the light he has created will continue to shine in the hearts and homes of others long after the day has passed. Important part of the fabric of life in this quiet village. For the candle maker, there is no need for accolades or praise. The satisfaction of the work itself is more than enough. As he takes a slow, steady breath, the weight of the days, work slowly lifts from his shoulders, and he allows himself a moment of quiet reflection. The workshop, now bathed in the soft glow of the candles, feels like a sanctuary, a place where time slows and the worries of the outside world fade into the background. There is something timeless about this work, something that has been passed down through generations, each candle maker adding their own touch to the tradition, yet always remaining connected to the same humble craft that has been practiced for centuries. The candle maker looks out the small window of the workshop, watching as the moon rises higher in the sky, its silver light bathing the village in a soft glow. The world outside is peaceful, and for a moment, he allows himself to be lost in the beauty of the night. The quiet sounds of the village distant footsteps, the rustle of leaves, the soft murmur of the wind, create a gentle symphony that lulls the senses and deepens the sense of calm within. It is a moment of stillness, one that the candle maker has come to cherish. The simple beauty of the world, the quiet ebb and flow of the day into night, is something that he has learned to appreciate with each passing year. There is a sense of contentment in knowing that his work is part of this larger rhythm, that the light he creates will be carried into homes where it will offer warmth, comfort, and a sense of peace. Each candle he has made is a small piece of light in the darkness, a tiny beacon of hope in a world that can sometimes feel overwhelming. Yet, in the quiet moments like these, when the candles are finished, the shelves are full, and the workshop is still, he is reminded of the simplicity and beauty of life. The candle maker's work is far from glamorous, but it is steady, it is meaningful, and it is filled with a deep sense of purpose. He has spent years perfecting his craft, honing the skills passed down to him by his father and his father before him. And yet, despite all the years of experience, there is still something fresh and new in each candle he makes, something that continues to inspire him to move forward with each new day. As the night stretches on and the world outside drifts deeper into sleep, the candle maker begins to clean his tools, preparing for the next day of work. The steady rhythm of his actions is soothing, like a gentle lullaby, and he finds himself growing more and more relaxed with each passing moment. There is no rush, no pressure. The work will always be there, waiting for him in the morning, just as it has been for generations before him. As the last tool is cleaned and the final task for the night is complete, the candle maker steps back, taking one last look at the room before him. The candles are arranged neatly on the shelves, their soft glow filling the room with a gentle warmth. The flickering flames cast dancing shadows on the walls, creating an atmosphere of quiet serenity. The candle maker takes a deep breath, allowing himself a moment to appreciate the quiet beauty of the space. It is a humble space, but it is his, and it is filled with the fruits of his labor. The soft glow of the candles, the faint scent of beeswax, and the quiet stillness of the room are all reminders of the simple joys that come with the work he does. With a final look around, he blows out the small flame in the hearth, leaving only the soft light of the candles to guide him as he leaves the workshop for the night. The village is quiet, and the world outside is peaceful. The candle maker knows that tomorrow will bring another day of work, another batch of candles to be made, but for now, he allows himself to rest. The quiet rhythm of his life, the steady beat of his work will continue day after day, night after night. And in that quiet, humble work, there is a sense of fulfillment that no amount of praise or recognition could ever match. As he closes the door behind him and steps out into the cool night air, the candlemaker takes a moment to look up at the sky. The moon shines brightly overhead, its pale light casting a soft glow on the world below. The stars twinkle faintly, their distant light reminding him that, even in the darkest of nights, there is always light to be found. With a quiet smile, the candlemaker turns and walks away, knowing that his work, though unseen by most, is a small but important part of the greater story of the world, and that each candle he makes will continue to offer light and warmth long after the day has passed and the night has fallen. As the candlemaker walks away from his humble workshop, the cool night air greets him, offering a refreshing contrast to the warmth of the room he's just left behind. The village is quiet, wrapped in the peaceful stillness that only comes at night when the world is at rest and the only sounds are the occasional rustle of leaves or the distant call of an owl. The moon, full and glowing with a soft silver light, casts long shadows on the cobblestone streets, and the stars above twinkle faintly in the vast, dark sky, their light distant and mysterious. The candlemaker, his weathered hands now empty of tools, feels a quiet satisfaction settle in his chest. Today, like every day, he has given his time, his skill, and his care to a task that, though simple, is deeply meaningful. He knows that his work will bring light into homes, that the candles he has made will offer warmth and comfort to those who need it most. He can already picture the soft glow of their flames flickering in the hearths and windows of the village. Houses, casting a gentle light into the darkness of the night. This thought, this quiet knowledge, fills him with a sense of peace. He walks down the narrow street, the cobblestones worn smooth by generations of footsteps, the familiar path guiding him home. The night is cool, but not cold, the air carrying the faint scent of earth and wood, of the trees and fields that surround the village. The candlemaker is no stranger to this walk. It is one he has taken countless times before, and yet each time it feels as though he is discovering it anew. The rhythm of his steps matches the rhythm of the day, a steady, comforting pace that feels as natural as breathing. His mind, however, is not entirely still. As he walks, he reflects on the day's work, the small details that came together to create the candles he has made. He thinks about the careful way he dipped the wicks into the molten wax, the patience it took to create each one, and the quiet joy he finds in the simplicity of the craft. He knows that there is beauty in the act of creation, that there is something deeply fulfilling about working with his hands to shape something that will bring light into the world. He has spent years perfecting his craft, learning from his father, and his father before him. And though the process remains largely the same, each batch of candles feels like a new beginning. As he reaches his small cottage at the edge of the village, he pauses for a moment, taking in the view of the darkened hills that surround the village. The landscape is peaceful, the rolling hills bathed in the pale light of the moon, the quiet stillness broken only by the sounds of the wind moving through the trees. He feels a deep connection to this place, to the land that has been his home for so many years. There is something grounding about it, something that reminds him of the importance of his work, the value of the simple, quiet life he leads. It is not a life of grandeur or fame, but it is a life filled with purpose, with meaning, and with the quiet satisfaction that comes from knowing his work has a lasting impact. The candle maker reaches his door and enters his cottage, closing it gently behind him. The interior is modest but warm, a small fire crackling in the hearth, its soft glow illuminating the room with a comforting light. The smell of wood smoke lingers in the air, and the faint sound of the fire popping and crackling is the only noise that fills the space. He hangs up his coat by the door, removes his boots, and makes his way to the small wooden table at the center of the room. There, he sits down, his tired muscles aching after a long day of work, and he takes a moment to relax. He can still feel the weight of the candles he has made, the hours spent dipping wicks and shaping wax. But now, in the quiet of his home, he allows himself to let go of the day's efforts. He reflects on the simplicity of his routine, how it grounds him, how it gives him a sense of purpose and direction. There is peace in knowing what to expect from each day, and yet each day is filled with its own small moments of joy and fulfillment. The candle maker reaches for a small wooden bowl, its surface worn smooth from years of use, and he fills it with the evening's simple meal, a bowl of soup made from the vegetables he has grown in his own garden. The warmth of the soup comforts him, and he savors each spoonful, grateful for the nourishment it provides. He does not rush, but instead takes his time, enjoying the quiet solitude of the evening. It is a quiet ritual, one that has been the same for years, and yet it never feels repetitive. There is something sacred in these small daily rituals, something that helps him reconnect with the world around him and with the work he does. As he finishes his meal, he rises and moves to the window, looking out at the village below. The lights of the houses twinkle in the distance, their soft glow a reminder of the work he has done, the light he has brought into the world. He feels a deep sense of pride in his work, knowing that he has contributed to the comfort and warmth of his neighbors, that his candles will help light their homes and guide them through the darkness of the night. It is a quiet contribution, one that may go unnoticed by many, but to the candle maker, it is enough. He turns away from the window and makes his way to the small wooden bed in the corner of the room. The bed is simple, with a thick quilt to keep him warm through the night. As he lies down, he takes a deep breath, letting go of the day's worries, and allows his mind to settle. The stillness of the night surrounds him, the quiet peace of the village lulling him into a deep, restful sleep. Tomorrow will bring another day of work, another batch of candles to be made. But for now, the candle maker allows himself to rest, knowing that his work, though simple, is meaningful, and that each day he spends creating light will continue to brighten the world around him. The morning light creeps softly through the window, filtering in with a gentle warmth that begins to chase away the cool remnants of the night. A candle maker stirs beneath his simple quilt, the quiet sounds of the village awakening just outside the cottage door. A rooster's crow rings out faintly in the distance, followed by the soft clatter of carts and the low murmur of voices as the first few villagers begin their daily routines. He lies there for a moment, savoring the stillness, the comfort of his bed, before he slowly opens his eyes and rises. There is no rush, no urgency in his movements. The pace of life in this quiet village is always measured, deliberate, and the candlemaker knows that today, like every other day, he will take the time to carefully craft the candles that will illuminate the homes of his neighbors and friends. Stretching his arms above his head, he pushes himself out of bed and makes his way to the small, wooden table where his simple breakfast awaits. It's a routine he's grown accustomed to over the years, one that feels as familiar and comfortable as the work he does. He begins his day with a hot cup of tea, the warmth spreading through his hands as he sips it slowly, enjoying the stillness of the morning. The room is quiet, save for the soft sounds of the fire crackling gently in the hearth, and he takes a moment to appreciate the peace that surrounds him. The candlemaker finishes his tea and stands, moving toward the small window to gaze outside. The village, though small and peaceful, is alive with activity now. The market square is starting to fill with merchants setting up their stalls, children running about, and the sounds of livestock being tended to by their owners. Beyond the village, the fields stretch out into the horizon, bathed in the soft, golden light of the early morning sun. It is a landscape that has remained largely unchanged over the years, and the candlemaker finds comfort in this constancy. He knows that as long as the sun rises and sets, he will continue his work, just as his father did before him and his grandfather before that. The simple act of crafting candles has become not just a livelihood, but a way of life. And with each candle he creates, he feels a deeper connection to the land, to his family's tradition, and to the community he serves. With a deep breath, he turns away from the window and begins to prepare for the day's work. His hands, though calloused and worn from years of labor, move with steady purpose as he gathers the materials he needs: wicks, beeswax, tallow, and the small tools he has carefully crafted over the years. The wax is still warm from the previous day's batch, and he dips his fingers into it, feeling its smoothness and texture as he sets to work. The process is simple but precise. Each wick must be carefully braided before it can be dipped into the molten wax, and each layer of wax must be applied slowly, with patience, allowing the candle to grow in size and strength. The candlemaker works in a rhythm that has become second nature to him. The sounds of his craft fill the room, the soft plop of the wick dipping into the wax, the gentle scraping of the wax against the sides of the pot, and the quiet crackle of the fire in the hearth. Each movement is deliberate, each action a part of the whole, and he finds a deep satisfaction in the repetition of it. It is a peaceful, meditative process, one that requires focus, but also allows the mind to wander. As the morning progresses, the room grows warmer with the heat of the hearth and the candles being crafted. The candlemaker is lost in his work, his hands moving with practiced ease, but his mind is calm, free from the worries of the outside world. This is the space where he feels most at peace, where the noise of the world falls away, and he can focus on nothing but the task at hand. It is in these quiet moments that he feels most connected to the tradition of his craft and to the legacy that he is carrying forward. Outside, the village begins to stir in earnest. The market is bustling now, filled with the sounds of haggling and laughter, the clink of coins, and the soft thrum of daily life. Yet inside the candlemaker's workshop, there is only the steady rhythm of his work, the soft glow of the fire, and the quiet satisfaction of a job well done. As the day wears on, the pile of finished candles grows steadily, each one a small work of art in its own right. The candlemaker arranges them neatly on a wooden shelf, the soft light from the fire reflecting off their smooth surfaces. He steps back for a moment to admire his work, feeling a quiet pride in what he has accomplished. There is something deeply fulfilling about creating something that will bring light into people's homes, something that will offer warmth and comfort on cold, dark nights. The candles are more than just a product. They are a symbol of care, of craftsmanship, and of the simple joys of life. As the sun reaches its zenith, the candle maker takes a break, stepping outside to stretch his legs and breathe in the fresh air. The village is still bustling, but now there is a sense of quiet contentment in the air, as if the rhythm of the day has settled into a peaceful flow. The birds are singing, the breeze is gentle, and the village, though full of life, feels calm and serene. It is a simple life, one that may seem slow to outsiders, but to the candle maker, it is the only life he knows. He returns to his workshop, his mind calm and his body refreshed, and continues his work. As the afternoon stretches into evening, the pile of candles on the shelf grows larger, and the room grows dimmer as the light from the outside begins to fade. The candle maker takes a moment to light a small candle from the pile, watching as the flame flickers to life. He places it on the table beside him, its soft glow illuminating the room in a warm, golden light. The simple act of lighting the candle feels like a small victory, a reminder of the work he has done, of the light he has created. It is a symbol of the day's efforts, and as the light of the candle flickers and dances, it reminds him of the quiet, steady progress of his work. The day is winding down now, and the village is beginning to quiet as well. The sounds of the market have faded, replaced by the gentle hum of evening activities. The candle maker, feeling the weight of the day's work settle in his bones, begins to prepare for the end of the day. The room is filled with the soft light of the candles he has created, and the air is thick with the comforting scent of beeswax and tallow. As the last few candles are placed on the shelf, the candle maker takes a deep breath and exhales, feeling a quiet sense of satisfaction. Today has been a good day, a day filled with purpose and meaning. He knows that tomorrow will bring another batch of candles to create, but for now, he allows himself to rest, to enjoy the quiet peace of the evening, and to reflect on the work he has done. As he blows out the last candle and the room falls into darkness, he feels content, knowing that he has once again brought light into the world, one candle at a time. The early morning hours crept in gently, casting a faint light across the candle maker's humble workshop. The world outside remained still, the first whispers of dawn only just beginning to stretch across the horizon, heralding the arrival of another peaceful day. The candle maker had been awake for a while, lying in the comfort of his warm bed, but there was no urgency in his body. Slowly, he rose from beneath his thick quilt, his movements deliberate, enjoying the calmness of the morning. The sun had not yet fully risen, but the soft glow of its light began to creep through the small window, inviting him to start the day in his usual steady manner. He stretched his arms, the familiar crackle of joints greeting the new day, and took a deep breath, appreciating the stillness of the early hours. It was in these quiet moments that he found his peace, before the village awoke, before the rush of the world came knocking. The faint hum of nature outside, the soft rustle of leaves and the chirping of the birds filled the air in a symphony of subtle sounds. These noises were familiar to him, like old friends who kept him company as he moved through his daily routine. With a sense of calm satisfaction, the candle maker began his morning ritual. He moved toward the hearth, the low crackle of embers still glowing in the fireplace, warming the room and adding a faint flicker of light to the darkness. He stirred the embers carefully, enjoying the comforting warmth that enveloped the room as the fire came back to life. The small flame leapt up in response, dancing merrily within the hearth. His gaze lingered on the fire for a moment, appreciating its slow, steady burn. There was something calming about the fire, something that reminded him of his own rhythm, the pace at which he crafted the candles that would one day light the homes of those in his village. The act of creating, of shaping light from wax and wick, had become more than just a livelihood for him. It was a way of life, a quiet joy that he had inherited from his forefathers. The candle maker took a few more steps across the room, the familiar creak of the wooden floor beneath his feet, the only other sound. He moved towards the small wooden table, where his breakfast awaited simple fare, but satisfying nonetheless. A bowl of porridge, warm and comforting, and a steaming mug of herbal tea. These small, everyday moments, quiet as they were, held a special place in his heart. They were as much a part of his craft as the candles themselves. With every spoonful of porridge and sip of tea, he could feel himself slowly settling into the rhythm of the day. As he finished his simple meal, the candle maker took a moment to gather his thoughts. He knew what awaited him, another day of making candles, of crafting light for his neighbors. Each day was the same in its steady, predictable way. He wasn't bothered by this. In fact, he found comfort in the routine. The quiet certainty of each day gave him a sense of stability that he valued deeply. The world outside may have been filled with chaos and change, but here, in his little workshop, time moved slowly and gently. The candle maker was at peace with the flow of things. Once his breakfast was complete, he rose from the table and moved to the workbench, his steady hands already anticipating the tasks ahead. He gathered the materials he would need: wicks, beeswax, tallow, and his small tools. The wax was soft, still warm from the day before, and the familiar scent of beeswax filled the air as he began his work. There was no rush. A candle maker knew that each step, though simple, required patience and precision. It was the small, quiet efforts that turned raw materials into something useful, something that would bring light to a home. The process was nearly meditative, the repetition of dipping the wicks into the molten wax, layer by layer, soothing his mind and body. The sound of the wax swirling in the pot, the soft hiss of the fire as it crackled behind him, the rhythmic dipping and pulling of the wicks. These were the sounds that filled the room, and they gave him a sense of calm. It was a rhythm that had become second nature to him, so ingrained in his life that he could do it without thinking, yet still take immense satisfaction from the process. The flickering of the fire behind him provided a warm glow in the otherwise dim room, casting long, flickering shadows that danced across the walls. A candle maker could feel the heat of the hearth against his back, a comforting presence as he worked. The room was filled with the quiet crackle of the fire, the soft hiss of the wax, and the distant hum of life outside. He paused for a moment, looking around the room, taking in the familiar sight of the wooden shelves lined with candles in various stages of completion. Each one was a small act of creation, a symbol of his work, his dedication to the craft. As the wax began to cool, he carefully shaped the candles, trimming the wicks to the correct length and placing them on a rack to solidify. The process was simple, but to him, it felt like magic, the way raw materials were transformed into something functional, something beautiful. The candle maker worked steadily, the hours slipping by unnoticed. Time had a way of slowing down in his workshop, and before he knew it, the sun had reached its zenith. He took a moment to step outside for a break, to stretch his legs and breathe in the fresh air. The village was bustling now, more voices in the square, the sounds of carts and livestock, and the faint scent of fresh bread wafting from the bakery. But even with all the activity, there was still a sense of calm in the air. The candle maker enjoyed these quiet interludes when he could step outside and listen to the world around him. It reminded him of the pace of life in the village, steady, reliable, and unhurried. After a few minutes of rest, the candle maker returned to his workshop, feeling refreshed and ready to continue his work. He moved back to the workbench, where the candles were beginning to take shape. He added the final touches, carefully smoothing the surfaces of the wax, trimming the wicks to perfection. With every small adjustment, the candles became more than just objects. They became symbols of the steady, reliable work that defined his life. By the time the sun began to dip below the horizon, the candle maker had completed another batch. He stood back and admired his work, the soft glow of the candles lighting the room in a gentle, soothing way. There was a quiet satisfaction in knowing that each candle he made would find its way into a home, bringing light and warmth to its inhabitants. He knew that his work, though simple, had an impact on the lives of those around him. It was a small thing, but in its own way, it was vital. As the evening grew darker, the candle maker finished tidying up his workshop, putting away the tools and sweeping up the remnants of wax. He took one last look around, feeling a quiet pride in the day's work. The fire in the hearth crackled softly, its warmth spreading throughout the room. With the last candle lit, the candle maker felt a sense of completion. Another day had passed, another set of candles made. It was a simple life, but it was one that brought him peace. As he blew out the last flame of the day, the room settled into a soft, comforting darkness. The candle maker retired for the night, his body tired but content, knowing that tomorrow would bring another day of quiet joy, another day of crafting light from wax and wick. The quiet village lay still beneath the soft embrace of a golden dawn, its cobbled streets bathed in the gentle hues of early morning light. The candle maker's workshop was calm, a peaceful refuge from the world outside, where life moved at its own pace, unhurried and steady. The only sound that broke the silence was the soft crackle of the fire in the hearth, its glow casting flickering shadows that danced across the room. A candle maker, rising from his bed, stretched his limbs, feeling the familiar ache of a day's labor in his bones. Yet it was a comforting sensation, a reminder of the work that awaited him and the rhythm of life he had come to cherish. He moved to the small table where his morning tea sat waiting, its warmth rising in soft tendrils of steam, filling the air with the faint scent of herbs. He took a deep breath, allowing the warmth to settle within him, bringing a moment of peace. Before he began his work for the day, the tea was simple, but it was a quiet luxury, a ritual that marked the start of his day, grounding him in the present and the work he was about to undertake. With each sip, the candle maker felt his mind calm, the early morning haze giving way to a steady clarity. He knew what awaited him today, another day of crafting candles, of bringing light into the world, one wick at a time. His hands moved instinctively as he prepared for the day's work. The fire crackled, and the soft warmth of the hearth seemed to wrap around him like a comforting embrace, reminding him of the steadiness of his craft. The act of making candles had become a meditation for him, a rhythm that he had come to trust. There was a simplicity to it that allowed him to let go of the world outside, focusing only on the task at hand. The flicker of the fire, the hiss of wax being poured, the steady hum of his own breath as he worked. These were the sounds that filled the space, creating a quiet symphony of motion and stillness. He gathered his tools with care, his practiced, hands moving deftly over the table as he reached for the beeswax, its sweet scent filling the room as he unwrapped it. The wax was warm from the day before, pliable and soft, waiting to be transformed into something purposeful. He dipped his fingers into the wax, feeling its smooth surface, the coolness of the tallow mixing with the warmth of the fire. There was something deeply satisfying about the process, the way the wax melted and shaped, the way it slowly grew into something useful, something beautiful. The candle maker knew the importance of his work. Each candle was more than just light. It was a part of a tradition, a link in a chain that stretched back through the generations. His father had taught him the craft as his father had been taught by his own, and so it had continued through the centuries, this simple act of creating light to ward off darkness. With each candle, the maker was not just creating a product. He was carrying forward a piece of history, a piece of himself. The wax was ready now, and the candle maker dipped the wick into the molten tallow, watching as the wax slowly clung to it, building up layer by layer. The process was slow, but the candle maker did not mind. There was no hurry here, no rush. He knew that the work would take as long as it needed, and in that time, he could lose himself in the rhythm of the craft. The fire behind him continued to crackle, its warmth filling the room as he worked. It was the kind of work that demanded patience. Every step required care and attention. The wick must be centered perfectly, the wax applied evenly, and the flame tested to ensure it would burn brightly. The candle maker took his time, knowing that in each of these small details lay the difference between a good candle and a great one. There was no room for shortcuts in this work. It was the small, seemingly insignificant actions that made the difference. The wax was beginning to solidify, and the candle maker moved to the next one, dipping the wick into the molten wax once more, watching as the layers built up slowly, steadily. As the morning wore on, the pile of candles grew larger, their soft glow filling the room with a warm, golden light. The workshop was quiet now, save for the soft sounds of the fire and the occasional scrape of wax being smoothed. The candle maker paused for a moment, taking in the sight of his work. There was something deeply satisfying about seeing the candles, their steady glow lighting the room. It was a feeling that never grew old, no matter how many times he did. These simple, humble objects had the power to change a room, to bring warmth and light to a space. The act of creating them was more than just a job. It was a calling, a purpose that gave his life meaning. The village outside was stirring now, the sounds of life picking up as people began their daily tasks. The market was bustling, the merchants setting up their stalls, the villagers greeting each other with friendly waves and nods. The candle maker, however, was lost in his work, his hands steady and sure as they continued their labor. The world outside could move as it pleased, but within these walls, time slowed down. There was a calmness in the air, a stillness that permeated everything. As the day wore on, the light from the candles began to dim, the sun slipping lower. In the sky, the candle maker felt the familiar pull of evening settling over the room, and he began to clean up his workbench, wiping down the tools and putting away the wax. The final candles were placed on the shelves, their soft glow filling the space as the room grew darker. The fire in the hearth was beginning to fade now, but its warmth lingered in the air, wrapping the candle maker in a comforting embrace. It had been another quiet, steady day of work, and as he looked around the workshop, he felt a quiet pride in what he had accomplished. Each candle, carefully crafted and patiently molded, would soon be delivered to the village homes, bringing light and warmth to those who needed it most. The day's work was done, and as the candle maker extinguished the last flame of the day, he felt a deep sense of contentment. Tomorrow would bring more candles to create, but for now he could rest, knowing that he had once again fulfilled his purpose, had once again brought light into the world. He closed his eyes and breathed deeply, the soft flicker of the candles still playing in his mind as he allowed sleep to take him. It was a simple life, but it was a life he loved, a life full of quiet joy and steady purpose, where every candle he made was a reflection of his care, his craft, and his connection to the world around him. As the first rays of morning light began to filter through the small, leaded windows of the candlemaker's workshop, the room was filled with the soft golden glow of a new day. The warmth of the hearth still lingered in the air, the fire having burned down to embers, but its presence was felt as a quiet comfort in the chill of the early morning. The candlemaker stood in front of his workbench, a sense of quiet purpose settling over him. He had risen before dawn, as he did every day, to begin his work. to create the candles that would soon light the homes of the villagers. It was a steady rhythm that had become second nature to him over the years. This dance between wax and flame, between time and tradition. He stretched his arms, feeling the familiar ache in his muscles, a reminder of the long hours spent in the workshop. But it was a satisfying ache. It was a sign of work well done, of hands that had learned the craft through years of repetition and care. He took a deep breath, filling his lungs with the cool morning air, and then exhaled slowly, as if releasing the remnants of yesterday's work, making room for today's creation. The room was silent, save for the faint crackle of the embers in the hearth and the quiet rustle of the beeswax he had prepared the night before. He moved with steady, deliberate motions, his hands already reaching for the tools that would guide him through the day. The wax, soft and pliable, was waiting for him, as were the wicks, spun from flax with the same care and precision that had been passed down through generations. His fingers traced the edges of the wax sheets, each one carefully, cut to the right size, each one ready to be molded into the shape it was meant to take. It was a process that required patience, a slow and steady hand, as the candle maker knew that even the slightest imperfection could affect the quality of the final product. He reached for the molten tallow that was simmering in the pot over the hearth, the wax ready to dip into its warm embrace. The heat of the fire was a welcome comfort, its glow reflecting off the polished tools on the workbench, casting shadows that danced gently on the wooden walls. The candle maker dipped the wick into the melted wax, watching as the liquid substance clung to it, wrapping around it in delicate layers. Each dip added a little more, each layer building the candle slowly, carefully. The motion was meditative, a rhythm he had long since perfected. The wick was dipped in and out of the wax, each movement smooth and fluid, the sound of the molten substance dripping back into the pot, a soothing melody that filled the space. Time seemed to slow as the candle maker worked, his mind focused on the task at hand, the outside world fading away. There was only the wax, the wick, and the steady rhythm of creation. He dipped and turned, the process unfolding with the precision of a well-rehearsed dance. As the first candle began to take shape, the candle maker paused for a moment, admiring his work. It was still in its early stages, but already he could see the potential of the final product. The smooth, even layers of wax would soon form, slender, glowing beacon of light. It was a simple creation, but it held so much more. Each candle he made was a piece of history, a reflection of the skills and knowledge passed down through generations. It was a connection to the past, to the time when candles were the only source of light in the darkness, when each flicker of flame held the promise of warmth and comfort. The candle maker thought of the families who would soon light these candles in their homes. He imagined the warmth they would bring, the soft glow that would illuminate the rooms during long winter nights, the flickering flames casting gentle shadows on the walls. It was a quiet form of magic, the way a simple flame could transform a room, create an atmosphere of peace and calm, chase away the darkness. He dipped the wick into the wax once more, feeling the familiar warmth of the molten substance on his skin, and as he did, he thought of the hundreds of candles he had made over the years, each one a small act of creation, each one contributing to the greater rhythm of life in the village. The day passed slowly, as it always did in the workshop. The candles were formed one by one, the work steady and unhurried. The candle maker lost himself in the rhythm of the process, in the gentle hum of his movements, the steady drip of wax, the flicker of the fire. He was surrounded by the familiar tools of his trade, the long wooden workbench, the rows of finished candles resting on the shelves, the pots of wax and tallow simmering in the heat of the hearth. Each piece of the workshop had its place, its purpose, and together they formed a harmonious whole. There was a beauty in that harmony, in the way each task, no matter how small, contributed to the creation of something greater. The candles were more than just objects. They were a reflection of the time and care that went into making them. As the evening approached, the candle maker began to clean up his workbench, arranging the finished candles in neat rows. There, slender forms glowing softly in the dimming light. He looked around the workshop, feeling a deep sense of contentment. The day had been long, but it had been fulfilling. There was something deeply satisfying about the work he did, about the knowledge that each candle he made would bring light to someone's home, that it would become a part of their lives. The candle maker took a moment to appreciate the stillness of the room, the quiet peace that had settled over the space. It was a rare moment, a moment of reflection before the hustle and bustle of the next day began. He turned to the window, gazing out at the village as the sun set behind the hills, casting a soft orange glow over the rooftops. The world outside was peaceful, just as it always was. The candle maker knew that tomorrow would bring more work, more candles to make, but for now he was content. He had done his work, and the world was a little brighter because of it. As he closed the door to the workshop, the faint glow of the candles still lingering in the air, he felt a quiet sense of pride. It was a simple life, but it was his life, and it was a life full of meaning, full of purpose. And as he walked into the village to join the others, the last rays of the sun disappearing behind the hills, he knew that the work of today would carry into tomorrow, and the rhythm of creation would continue. It was a life of simplicity, but in its simplicity lay a deep, unwavering truth, that in the act of creation there was harmony, there was purpose, and there was light, and that was enough. As the last light of day began to fade, the village settled into a tranquil hush, the quiet rhythm of evening falling gently over the land like a soft blanket. In the candle maker's workshop, the flickering flames of the hearth cast long, warm shadows upon the walls, dancing playfully across the worn wooden beams above. The air was thick with the familiar sense of beeswax and tallow, mingling with the faint smoky remnants of the fire, filling the room with a comforting, familiar aroma that seemed to welcome the candle maker back into the peaceful solitude of his work. It was at this time of day, as the world outside was enveloped in darkness, that the candle maker felt most at ease, when the steady rhythm of his hands shaping the wax and his mind would settle into a peaceful, meditative state. With each dip of the wick into the molten wax, the stillness of the evening seemed to deepen, as if time itself had slowed, allowing the candle maker to reflect upon his craft, his life, and the work that he had devoted so many years to perfecting. The candles that he made in this quiet space, by the light of the fire and the flicker of the hearth, were more than just simple objects. They were vessels of warmth, comfort, and light, destined to bring peace to the homes of the villagers when the night stretched on and the world outside grew cold and dark. He worked steadily, his hands moving with practiced precision, dipping the braided wick into the molten wax, watching as each layer formed slowly and deliberately, building upon the last. The work was rhythmic, calming, and it allowed his thoughts to wander, to drift as the wax cooled and hardened. Outside the workshop, the village had grown still, the sounds of the day fading into the quiet of the night. The distant calls of nocturnal creatures punctuated the silence, while the soft rustle of leaves in the breeze provided a gentle lullaby that seemed to harmonize with the candle maker's movements. As he continued his work, he thought of the people who would soon be using his candles, families gathered around the fire, their faces illuminated by the soft, flickering light of the flames, children whispering stories in the warmth of the hearth. He thought of the quiet comfort that his candles brought to those homes, the way their gentle light softened the edges of the night, creating a space where rest and peace could settle in. The candle maker paused for a moment, looking down at the finished candles resting on the wooden rack beside him. Each one was a small masterpiece, a testament to his dedication and skill. They had been created with the utmost care, each one carefully shaped, each layer of wax added with patience, ensuring that the final product would provide a steady, long-lasting flame. He smiled to himself, a quiet satisfaction settling in his chest as he gazed at the candles, knowing that each one would soon bring light to a dark room, offer warmth to those who needed it most, and provide a sense of comfort to those who might be feeling lonely or afraid in the long hours of the night. The evening stretched on, and the candlemaker continued to work, the steady rhythm of his hands dipping the wicks, layering the wax, and shaping the candles into perfect forms. The quiet of the workshop was soothing, a peaceful solitude that was only interrupted by the crackling of the fire and the occasional sound of the wind outside. As the candles grew in number, the candlemaker's thoughts shifted to the coming days. He thought of the village, the familiar faces he saw each day, the stories they shared, and the quiet camaraderie that came with living in a place where everyone knew one another. He thought of the changing seasons, how the warmth of summer had given way to the coolness of autumn, and how the long nights of winter were soon to follow. It was during these colder months that the candlemaker's work was most important, when the need for light and warmth became even more pressing. The village would rely on the steady glow of his candles to see them through the long, dark nights ahead, and he took great pride in knowing that his work played a small but important role in the lives of those around him. The candles he created were more than just a means of illumination. They were a symbol of the quiet, enduring rhythms of life in the village, a reminder that even in the darkest hours, there was always light to be found. As the night grew deeper, the candlemaker finished his work for the evening, placing the last of the candles on the wooden rack and turning his attention to cleaning his tools and tidying up the workshop. The fire in the hearth was beginning to burn low, the embers glowing faintly in the dim light. He stoked the fire one last time, adding a few more logs to keep the warmth in the room. As he did so, he looked out the small window of the workshop, gazing at the quiet village bathed in the soft glow of moonlight. The sky above was clear and starry, the stars twinkling faintly in the cold, crisp air. The village seemed to be holding its breath, wrapped in the stillness of the night. The candlemaker took a deep breath, inhaling the cool night air, feeling a sense of peace settle over him. He was content, knowing that the work he had done that day would bring light and warmth to the homes of the villagers, providing them with the comfort of a flickering flame in the darkness. It was a simple life, but it was a life filled with purpose, a life that was rooted in the quiet rhythms of creation. As he closed the door to the workshop, he felt a sense of fulfillment, knowing that the night would soon fall fully over the village, but that the soft light of his candles would continue to shine, offering a gentle, unwavering beacon of warmth and comfort to those who needed it most. The candlemaker turned away from the workshop, stepping into the cool night air and walking toward the village, ready to rest and prepare for another day of work. The quiet comfort of the night surrounded him, the peace of the evening settling in his bones. He was at peace, knowing that his simple craft would continue to bring light into the world, one candle at a time. The quiet of the evening grew deeper as the candlemaker moved through the familiar motions of his craft, the rhythmic dipping of the wick into the molten wax, a constant reminder of the steady passage of time. Each movement was deliberate and patient, as though he could slow the hours, stretching them out as he worked by the soft light of the flickering fire. Outside, the moon had risen high in the sky, casting its silver light over the sleepy village, while the stars twinkled faintly. In the distance, their distant glow mingling with the soft warmth inside the candlemaker's workshop. The air was thick with the scent of beeswax and tallow, the faint trace of burning wood from the hearth mixing with the natural sweetness of the wax. He moved gracefully, his hands steady, dipping the braided wick over and over into the shimmering pool of molten wax, each dip building the candle's form slowly, carefully. The work was meditative, a quiet escape from the world outside, a moment of peace in the constant flow of life. As he worked, the candlemaker's thoughts wandered, drifting back to the early days when he first began his craft. He remembered the first candle he ever made, the sense of wonder and accomplishment he had felt as he held the small, slender flame aloft, the first flicker of light that was his to give. Over the years, his skills had grown, and the candles he created had become not only objects of warmth and light, but symbols of comfort for the village. He had watched over countless families as they gathered around the soft glow of his candles, seen children's faces illuminated by their flickering flames, and watched as the dark nights of winter were softened by the light he provided. It was a humble craft, but it was one that brought comfort to those who needed it most. The candlemaker smiled to himself as he carefully trimmed the finished wicks, the sound of his scissors snipping quietly filling the workshop. Each candle was a small piece of history, a product of the hands that had shaped it and the light that it would carry. He could feel the passing of time in each one, the years of learning and perfecting the craft, embedded in the smooth surface of the wax. As he arranged the completed candles on the wooden shelf, he thought about how each one would soon find a home, providing warmth and light to those in need. There was something sacred in the simplicity of it all, in the steady flow of time marked by each flicker of a candle flame. Outside the workshop, the village had grown still, the sounds of the day replaced by the quiet murmur of the night. The rustling of leaves, the distant call of an owl, and the soft shuffle of footsteps as villagers made their way home, all blended together to create a natural lullaby. The world outside seemed to pause for a moment, allowing the candlemaker to finish his work in peace. He knew that soon the candles he had made would light the way for those in need of guidance, whether it was the soft glow in a home or the small beacon of light on a darkened path. The thought brought him a sense of satisfaction, knowing that his work would continue long after the fire in his hearth had died down and the workshop was empty. The night continued to deepen as he finished the final batch of candles for the evening. He looked around the workshop, taking in the soft glow that surrounded him, the shadows cast by the flickering flames, and the quiet serenity of the space. It was a humble room, but it was one filled with purpose. The quiet hum of the world outside seemed to fade as he turned away from the workbench, his eyes glancing briefly at the window where the moonlight spilled over the village. It was in these moments, when time seemed to slow and the night stretched on, that the candlemaker felt most connected to the world. Each flicker of light, each subtle movement of the flames, reminded him of the importance of his craft. The steady rhythm of dipping and trimming, of shaping and molding, was a way to anchor himself in the present, to ensure that each day was marked by a small act of creation. As the final candle was placed on the shelf, the candlemaker wiped his hands on his apron and took a deep breath, the satisfaction of a day's work settling into his bones. He knew that tomorrow would bring more candles to make, more families to light the way, and more moments of peace in the quiet hours of the evening. For now, though, the workshop was complete. The last of the light in the hearth flickered out, leaving the room bathed in the soft, golden glow of the candles he had created. The candlemaker stood for a moment, taking in the quiet beauty of the space, the flicker of the flames casting a soft light that seemed to chase away the darkness. It was a small moment, but it was enough. It was the essence of his work, of his life, a quiet, unhurried dedication to bringing light into the world, one candle at a time. The candlemaker turned and stepped outside the workshop, the cool night air greeting him with a soft breeze. He walked slowly through the village, the distant sounds of the world outside settling into the background as he made his way home. The quiet of the night was a comfort, a reminder of the simplicity of his life and the small but important role he played in the world. As he reached his door, he paused for a moment, looking up at the moon hanging high in the sky, casting its silver light over the village. The stars twinkled faintly in the distance, the night stretching on in its quiet embrace. The candlemaker smiled to himself, content in the knowledge that his work had brought a small but meaningful light to the world that night. He stepped inside, closing the door behind him, and settled into the comfort of his home, ready to rest and prepare for another day of work. The flicker of time continued, and he would be there, steady and sure, dipping wicks and shaping wax, ensuring that the world would always have a little more light to see by. The candlemaker sat in his small workshop, surrounded by the comforting aroma of beeswax and the soft flicker of the flames. The room was quiet except for the gentle crackling of the fire in the hearth and the rhythmic sound of his hands working, dipping wicks into the molten wax. It was a slow process, one that required patience, precision, and an understanding of time itself. The wax, now a shimmering golden liquid, swirled with the heat of the fire as he carefully dipped each wick, watching it grow slowly with every immersion. It was a delicate balance, knowing how long to leave the wick in the molten wax to ensure the candle would be just right. There was a rhythm to it, a rhythm that was so familiar to him after years of practice, one that felt like an extension of his very being. The candlemaker thought back to the first time he had ever dipped a wick, the first candle he had ever made, and the sense of awe that had filled him when he saw the slender shape of the candle take form. It had been a simple task, but to him it had felt like the beginning of something far more significant. Now, many years later, he could make 100 candles without hesitation, without thought, each one crafted with the same care and attention as the first. The world outside had fallen into its usual quiet, the stillness of the night settling over the village. The moon, now a pale disk high above, bathed everything in its soft light, casting long shadows on the ground. The trees swayed gently in, the breeze, their leaves rustling softly as if whispering secrets to one another. The village, wrapped in its peaceful slumber, seemed to be held in time, each moment stretching into the next. As the candlemaker worked, he was aware of the stillness, but it was a stillness that felt like a friend. It was not an oppressive quiet, but a restful one, a calm that invited contemplation and peace. There was a certain satisfaction in knowing that he could bring light to the world, that with each candle he made, he was contributing something small but important. The flickering glow of the candles in his workshop was a reflection of that quiet contribution, each one offering its soft light to chase away the darkness, if only for a moment. The candles, once finished, would be taken out into the world, where they would find homes, hearths, and hearts to brighten. He imagined the families that would gather around the light of his candles, the warmth they would bring to rooms, to faces, to lives. It was a simple thing, a candle, but it was one that held meaning. As the night deepened, the candlemaker's movements became more automatic, his hands moving without thought as he dipped the wicks into the wax again and again. His mind wandered as he worked, thinking about the passing of time. It seemed like only yesterday that he had started this craft, learning the ways of his father, watching him as he worked in the same workshop, performing the same task. His father had passed on years ago, but the lessons he had imparted remained, woven into the fabric of his being. The memory of his father's hands, steady and sure as they dipped the wicks, guided his own hands even now. There was comfort in the repetition of this task, in the knowledge that each candle was part of a long tradition, one that had been passed down from generation to generation. He could almost feel his father's presence in the room with him, his quiet guidance echoing in every movement. Outside, the wind began to pick up, the branches of the trees swaying more violently now, their leaves rustling with greater urgency. The sound was soothing, a reminder that the world continued to turn. That time marched forward, regardless of the quiet moments spent in the workshop. The candlemaker finished his final dip of the evening, the last wick now complete. He stepped back from the workbench, looking at the row of finished candles lined up on the shelves. They gleamed softly in the warm glow of the hearth, the wax smooth and glistening under the firelight. The candles, each one a small work of art, were ready to take their place in the world. He could imagine the people who would soon buy them, their faces lighting up as they held the candles in their hands, their eyes reflecting the same soft glow that the candles cast. In those moments, the candlemaker knew his work would have made a difference, even if it was only in the smallest of ways. The satisfaction of a job well done filled him, a deep sense of pride that came from the quiet certainty that he had done his part, that he had fulfilled his role in the world. There was no need for grand gestures or recognition. The simple act of creating something useful, something beautiful, was enough. The workshop, now quiet, was bathed in the soft glow of the hearth and the candles. The only sound was the faint crackling of the fire as it burned low, the last embers glowing softly in the hearth. The candlemaker took a moment to savor the peace of the room, the sense of completion that came with the end of a day's work. Tomorrow would bring more candles to be made, more wicks to be dipped, but for now, the work was done. The night outside stretched on, the stars twinkling above in their eternal dance, and the candlemaker felt a deep connection to it all, to the village, to his father, to the generations of candlemakers who had come before him. He was part of something much larger than himself, a tradition that had endured for centuries, and in that moment he felt a sense of peace settle into his bones. The quiet glow of the candles in the room seemed to echo that peace, a soft reminder of the small, simple acts of diligence that made life meaningful. With a final glance at the finished candles, the candlemaker stood, extinguishing the fire in the hearth and stepping out of the workshop. The night greeted him with its cool embrace, the moon casting a soft light over the village as he walked slowly home. It was a quiet walk, the kind that allowed his mind to rest and reflect on the day's work. There was no rush, no urgency, just the steady rhythm of his steps and the quiet hum of the world around him. The village, nestled in its peaceful slumber, was a world of its own, and the candlemaker was content in knowing that he played a small but essential part in it all. As the candlemaker sat at his workbench, his eyes slowly traced the outline of the room, watching the soft glow of the candles he had made flicker in the dim light of the workshop. The fire in the hearth crackled, sending faint tendrils of smoke into the air, a gentle reminder of the warmth that enveloped the space. The room, small and simple, was filled with the quiet hum of life, a life shaped by the rhythm of the seasons and the steady hands of the man who had dedicated his years to perfecting the art of candle making. His hands, now weathered and rough from years of dipping wicks and shaping wax, moved with practiced ease as he trimmed the final wick of the evening. He paused, allowing the silence to fill the room, and for a moment he let his thoughts wander. Time seemed to slow as he reflected on the many years that had passed in this very workshop. He had once been a young boy, watching his father work with the same steady hands, the same quiet focus as the candles took shape before his eyes. Now he was the one who held the tradition in his hands, continuing the work that had been passed down to him, keeping the craft alive through the generations. The candles, each one a symbol of patience and care, were more than just objects. They were a reflection of the time spent, the love infused into every dip of the wick, the warmth and light they would bring to others. As the candle maker looked at the row of finished candles, each one ready to be taken out into the world, he thought of the families who would soon light them, their homes filled with warmth and light, their days made a little brighter by the flicker of the flame. It was a simple thing, the act of making a candle, but it was a task that held deep meaning, a task that connected him to the past, to the generations that had come before him, and to the future, to the homes and hearts that would be touched by the light of his work. He could almost feel his father's presence in the room, his hands guiding his own, just as they had so many years ago. The thought brought a quiet comfort to his heart, a reminder that he was not alone in this work. The tradition lived on, passed down like a flickering flame, each generation adding its own light to the growing fire. The candle maker took a deep breath, savoring the peace of the moment. Outside, the world was quiet, the village still in the embrace of night. The moon hung low in the sky, casting a soft silver light over the rooftops and fields, while the stars twinkled faintly in the distance, their light a distant reminder of the vastness of the universe. The village seemed suspended in time, the only sounds the faint rustle of leaves stirred by a gentle breeze, the soft call of an owl in the distance, and the steady hum of life that moved quietly beneath the surface. In the workshop, the steady rhythm of his work continued, each candle a small victory in the larger story of his life. The repetition of the task, the act of creating something from nothing, was a comforting ritual, one that allowed him to lose himself in the work, to let go of the worries of the world outside. As the hours passed, the candle maker found himself lost in thought, his hands moving almost automatically as he dipped the wicks into the wax, shaping them with the same precision he had used for years. He was aware of the passage of time, but it seemed to slow in the quiet of the workshop, the steady hum of his work filling the room and pushing everything else into the background. In that moment, he was at peace. There was no rush, no urgency only. The steady rhythm of his hands, the quiet glow of the candles, and the comforting presence of the past. His father's lessons were still with him, shaping the way he worked, shaping the way he thought about his craft. He could remember his father's voice, the quiet guidance, the steady presence that had anchored him throughout his childhood. It had been his father who had taught him that the work itself was the reward, that the true satisfaction came not from the recognition, but from the quiet pride of knowing that he had done his best, that he had created something beautiful, something lasting. The candle maker's thoughts turned to the future, to the next generation. Would they carry on this tradition? Would they find the same peace and satisfaction in the work that he had found? He hoped so. He hoped that the candles he made, the light he created, would continue to shine long after he was gone, passed down to the hands of others who would continue the work. It was a legacy, a quiet legacy that would endure, even if it was never recognized or celebrated. He did not need the praise. The act of making the candles, the act of giving light to others, was enough. His thoughts were interrupted by the sound of the door creaking open. He turned to see a figure standing in the doorway, silhouetted against the pale light of the moon. It was a neighbor, a familiar face, someone who often came to buy candles for their home. The candle maker smiled and nodded, welcoming them into the warmth of the workshop. The neighbor stepped inside, the soft glow of the candles illuminating their face. They greeted the candle maker with a nod, their eyes shining with gratitude. "Your candles bring so much light to our home," they said softly, their voice full of warmth. "It's a simple thing, but it means so much." The candle maker felt a quiet warmth spread through him at their words. It was a small gesture, but it was the reason he did this work, to bring light, to bring warmth, to make the world a little brighter, one candle at a time. He nodded in response, the satisfaction of his work settling deep in his chest. "I'm glad they bring you comfort," he said, his voice steady and calm. The neighbor smiled and took a candle from the shelf, paying for it with a few coins before leaving the workshop. The soft glow of the candle casting a warm light as they stepped out into the night. The door closed behind them, and the candle maker turned back to his work, a quiet sense of contentment filling him. He had done his part. His work would continue, bringing light to those who needed it most. The world outside was still, the village quiet under the watchful gaze of the moon, and the candle maker, surrounded by the soft flicker of his candles, felt a deep connection to everything, the past, the present, and the future. The quiet glow of his work would continue to shine, a gentle reminder of the beauty and simplicity, the power of light, and the lasting impact of a life dedicated to craftsmanship. With each candle he made, he added his own small light to the world, a flicker of warmth that would endure long after the flames had faded. The candle maker's hands were steady as they worked, dipping the braided wick into the molten wax again and again, the liquid gold forming delicate layers upon layers around the wick, each coat growing thicker and smoother, a testament to the quiet dedication of a craft honed over decades. The workshop was bathed in a soft, amber glow, the light from the flickering flames of the hearth dancing against the wooden beams overhead, casting long shadows that seemed to sway in time with the rhythmic movements of his hands. He had long since lost track of the hours. In this place, where time seemed to slow and the world outside faded away, it was only the steady pulse of his work that mattered. His thoughts wandered, as they often did, to the beginnings of his craft, to the days when he had first learned the art of candle making from his father. Those early days, filled with the smell of melting wax and the crackling of the fire, had felt slow and deliberate, much like the work he was doing now. His father had taught him that the secret to perfecting the craft lay not in speed or efficiency, but in patience and precision. Every candle he made was a reflection of his care, a small piece of his soul that he imbued into the wax as it took form. The man smiled softly as he dipped the wick once more, watching the wax slowly build, his hand never wavering in its motion. This was his life now, the creation of something simple yet profound, a flicker of light that would bring warmth to a cold night, a soft glow that would illuminate dark corners and chase away the shadows. There was a quiet satisfaction in knowing that his work had such an impact that his candles would find their way into homes, into the hearts of families, to guide them through the night. Outside, the village had settled into the quiet hum of evening, the last remnants of daylight fading into the horizon. The candle maker's workshop, nestled at the edge of the village, was one of the few places still awake, still alive with activity. The world beyond the door was a blur of muted colors as dusk descended, but here, inside the warm embrace of the workshop, there was only the steady motion of the candle maker's hands, the whisper of the fire, and the quiet hum of the world outside slipping away. He placed the newly formed candles carefully on the wooden rack beside him, their soft glow now mingling with the shadows in the room, their presence both calming and purposeful. He took a step back, allowing himself a moment to admire the fruits of his labor. Each candle, a simple creation, yet each one holding a story, a history, and a promise. The work had always been like this, slow, steady, and unhurried. There was no rush, no hurry to get the job done. The only thing that mattered was the work itself, the act of creation that filled the air with its own quiet beauty. The candle maker paused, his eyes moving to the small window at the back of the workshop. The sky had deepened to a rich, velvety blue, the first stars twinkling softly in the heavens above. The moon, round and full, had begun its rise, casting its pale light across the village below. He wondered, not for the first time, how many of his candles would burn tonight, How many families would gather around their flickering flames, the soft light adding warmth and comfort to their homes? It was a comforting thought, one that had always given him a sense of purpose. His father had always said that a candle was more than just a tool for illumination. It was a beacon, a symbol of hope and peace in the midst of darkness. It was that very idea that had drawn him to the craft all those years ago. He had started, as a boy, simply wanting to learn the skill, to master the craft that had been passed down to him, but over time, he had come to understand its deeper meaning. Making candles was not just about creating light. It was about creating something that would last, something that could provide comfort in times of need. The act of making the candles had become a ritual, one that connected him to his past and to the generations of candle makers who had come before him. His father's teachings were embedded deep within him, shaping his every motion as he worked, as though he were carrying on a legacy that was much larger than himself. The candle maker dipped his wick once more, and as the wax pooled around he thought of the hands that had come before him, his father's hands, his grandfather's hands, the hands of countless men and women who had perfected this craft over the centuries. He thought of the lives they had touched, the homes they had brightened, the comfort they had provided. It was a legacy of light, one that would continue long after he was gone. The steady rhythm of the work seemed to mirror the rhythms of his life, the quiet routines that had become so familiar, so comforting. He worked without thought, moving through the motions as naturally as breathing. He was at peace in this space, a space where time slowed, where the world beyond seemed to fade into the background. The flickering light of the candles filled the room, their soft glow casting shadows that seemed to dance in time with the fire, adding to the sense of quiet, peaceful contentment that filled the space. As he placed the last candle on the rack, the candle maker stood back and admired his work, his heart swelling with a quiet pride. The candles, each one unique and yet part of a greater whole, would soon be taken from the workshop and into the world, where they would bring light to dark, corners, warmth to cold nights, and comfort to those in need. They would fulfill their purpose, just as he had fulfilled his, quietly and steadily, with a dedication that was unspoken but deeply felt. The candle maker took a deep breath and looked out the window once more. The village was now fully wrapped. In the embrace of night, the lights of the homes flickering softly in the distance. The work of the day was done, and the world seemed at peace. He was content, knowing that he had done his part, that he had created something beautiful and lasting. The candles would burn brightly, their flames flickering in the dark, a small but steady reminder of the quiet beauty that could be found in the simplest of things. He smiled, feeling the weight of the years slip away for a moment, feeling the calm that had always come with the work. The candles were ready. The night had come, and for now, that was enough. As the final day of the week unfolded, the candlemaker felt a deeper sense of peace than he had ever known. The final candle he made for the day was no different from the others, yet something about it felt different, as if it was meant to be. The last one he crafted in this humble workshop. The rhythm of his movements remained steady, yet he felt as though time had slowed around him, stretching each moment to its fullest, like a fine thread being pulled from the spool. The wax melted, the scent of beeswax filling the air as the fire crackled quietly in the hearth, the flickering flames dancing and casting long shadows against the walls. Outside, the night had fully settled, the moon rising high above the village, casting its silver light over the rooftops and fields below. The stars twinkled softly, distant and constant, while the night embraced the land in its stillness. The candle maker's eyes never wavered from his work, dipping the wick into the yassi, warm, molten wax with slow, deliberate movements. Each layer of wax built upon the last, creating a candle that would burn brightly, offering light in the darkness for many nights to come. The simple act of creating this candle, this one last candle, filled him with a quiet satisfaction. It was as if he had come full circle in his craft, the years of hard work, dedication, and passion culminating in this moment. His hands, worn and calloused, moved with practiced ease, yet there was a new depth to each movement, a profound understanding that this final candle was not just a piece of wax and wick, but a culmination of his life's work. He paused for a moment, admiring the slender, delicate form of the candle. Its soft, smooth surface gleamed faintly in the dim light of the workshop. Its perfect symmetry, a testament to the countless hours he had spent perfecting his craft. For a moment, he let his mind drift back to the first time he had made a candle as a boy. It seemed like so long ago, yet the memory was as vivid as ever. His father had sat beside him, guiding his hands as he dipped the wick into the wax, showing him how to shape the candle, how to create something simple, yet so vital. His father had told him that each candle was a small act of creation, a way of bringing light into the world. That lesson had stayed with him, guiding him through every stage of his craft. He had spent years learning, practicing, and refining his technique. And now, as he stood before this final candle, he realized how much of himself he had poured into each one. It wasn't just the act of making candles that had shaped him. It was the quiet moments of reflection, the steady rhythm of the work, and the connection to the generations of candle makers who had come before him. Each candle he made was a tribute to them, a way of honoring their legacy and continuing the tradition. The workshop, now filled with the soft glow of the candles he had made throughout the day, felt like a sanctuary. The simple wooden shelves, lined with freshly crafted candles, the faint crackle of the fire, and the steady hum of the night outside created an atmosphere of peace and contentment. The weight of the world outside seemed to dissipate as he stood in this small room, surrounded by the products of his labor. For the first time in a long while, he allowed himself to relax, to truly appreciate the stillness of the moment. The quietness of the workshop, the gentle glow of the candles, and the comfort of the familiar rhythms of his work brought him a sense of calm that he had longed for. As he finished placing the final candle on the wooden rack, he stood back and surveyed the room. The candles were ready, each one a small beacon of light that would soon be carried out into the world. He imagined the families who would light them, their soft flames casting shadows on the walls, their warmth filling the rooms with comfort and peace. The candles would guide the way through the darkest nights, offering a steady, reliable light. And he, the candle maker, would have played a part in that, a quiet contributor to the warmth and safety of those around him. The man took a deep breath, allowing the scent of the beeswax to fill his lungs. The familiar, sweet fragrance was both calming and invigorating, grounding him in the present moment. He felt a deep sense of gratitude for the years of work, for the quiet life he had led, for the skill he had honed, and the tradition he had upheld. There was nothing extravagant or grand about his work, but there was a quiet dignity in it. He had spent his life creating something simple, yet profound. He had created light, and in that light, he had found his purpose. As the final candle cooled, the man reached for his coat, preparing to step outside for the night. The workshop was still warm, but the cool evening air beckoned him. The village was peaceful, the only sounds the rustling of leaves and the distant calls of nocturnal creatures. He glanced once more at the candles, their soft glow now a steady presence in the room. He felt at peace, knowing that his work had meaning, that each candle was more than just wax and wick. It was a promise of warmth, of comfort, of light in the darkness. The man stepped outside, closing the door behind him, and gazed up at the night sky. The moon shone brightly, casting its soft light across the land. The stars twinkled, silent sentinels keeping watch over the village. It was a peaceful night, one that seemed to reflect the calm in his heart. For a moment, he simply stood there, allowing the stillness of the night to wash over him. He had given so much of himself to his work, and now, as he stood beneath the stars, he felt a deep sense of fulfillment. The world was quiet, the night was still, and the candles he had created would soon light the way for those who needed them. His work, though simple, had made a difference, and for that he was content. With a final glance at the night sky, he turned and walked back to his humble home, the soft glow of the candles shining brightly in his mind. The quiet craft of creation had come full circle, and he, the candle maker, was at peace. The day began like any other in the quiet village, but for the candle maker, it held a sense of anticipation. Today was different. It wasn't the making of candles that set the day apart, nor the steady rhythm of dipping wicks into warm wax. That had become so familiar. It was the knowledge that his craft, his humble art, was about to take a new turn. His father's voice echoed in his mind, a reminder of the deep responsibility that came with carrying on a tradition. His father had once told him that making candles was more than just an act of creating light. It was a way of keeping the darkness at bay, a ritual passed down through generations that connected the past to the present, the living to the departed. The weight of this thought lingered as the candle maker prepared for his work. He stepped into the workshop, the air already thick with the scent of beeswax and tallow. The fire in the hearth crackled softly, adding its warm glow to the room. He could see the shadows cast by the candles he had made yesterday, their flickering light offering a quiet embrace to the room. The workshop was a sanctuary of sorts, a place where the candle maker could lose himself in the steady rhythm of his work and connect with the legacy of those who had come before him. His father's tools were carefully arranged on the workbench, each one worn and smooth from years of use. The candle maker ran his hand over the old wooden surface of the workbench, feeling the grooves and indentations that told the story of countless hours spent here. His father had used these tools, just as his grandfather had before him, and his great-grandfather before that. He could almost hear the echoes of their voices, the quiet hum of conversation as they worked side by side, creating light from nothing but wax, wick, and fire. Today, the candle maker would continue that tradition. The sun had barely risen, and the first rays of light filtered through the small window, casting long beams across the room. He set to work, carefully selecting the finest beeswax, melting it slowly and preparing the wicks with a steady hand. Each candle was made with the same care and attention to detail that had been passed down through the generations. His movements were fluid, practiced, but there was something more today, an awareness that the work he was doing now was part of something much larger than himself. As the first candle took shape, the candle maker couldn't help but reflect on how much he had learned over the years. When he was a young boy, his father had shown him how to dip the wicks, how to shape the candles with care, how to listen to the rhythm of the work and allow it to guide him. Back then, he had been eager to learn, to master the craft. But now, as an older man, he understood that there was more to it than just mastering a skill. There was an intimacy to the craft, a connection between the maker and the material, between the past and the future, that transcended technique. Each candle was a living testament to the dedication and care that had gone into its creation. It was a symbol of light in the darkness, of warmth in the cold, of hope in the face of uncertainty. As he dipped the wick into the molten wax, he thought about the generations of candle makers who had come before him. His father's father had worked with the same steady hands, creating candles to light the homes of the villagers. And his great-grandfather had done the same. They had all shared this quiet devotion to the craft, passing it down like a precious heirloom from one generation to the next. The torch of tradition had been handed to him, and now he was passing it on to his own children, just as his father had passed it on to him. The thought filled him with a quiet pride. He could see his children now, watching him work in the same way he had once watched his father. They were eager to learn, just as he had been. They asked questions, watching every movement with wide eyes, trying to understand the magic of creating light from wax and wick. He knew that one day they would take over the workshop, just as he had, and continue the work that had been passed down through the generations. The sound of the hearth crackling filled the room, a soothing backdrop to the steady rhythm of the candlemaker's work. As the day wore on, he found himself lost in the flow of the craft. Each candle he made felt like a small act of creation, a contribution to the warmth and light of the world. He thought about how these candles would soon be carried to homes across the village, offering light and warmth to families as they gathered around the hearth in the evenings. The simple act of lighting a candle, he realized, was a small but powerful gesture, a way of bringing light into the world, a way of offering comfort and peace in the face of darkness. By the time the sun had set, the candlemaker had completed 12 candles, each one crafted with the same care and precision. They sat on the wooden shelves, their soft glow lighting up the room with a gentle warmth. The candlemaker paused for a moment to admire his work. There was a sense of satisfaction in seeing the candles take shape, knowing that each one represented a small victory over the darkness. And yet, there was also a deep sense of humility. He knew that these candles were not just his work. They were the work of many generations of candlemakers, each one contributing to the tradition in their own way. The workshop was quiet now, the only sound the gentle crackling of the fire. The candlemaker stood there for a moment, lost in thought, before he turned to face the window. Outside, the village was bathed in the soft light of the moon, the stars twinkling faintly above. It was a peaceful night, one that seemed to reflect the peace in his heart. The work was done for the day, and the candles he had made would soon bring light and warmth to those who needed it most. He smiled to himself, knowing that the torch of tradition had been passed on once again. And with that thought, he turned and left the workshop, stepping into the night, his heart filled with the quiet satisfaction of a job well done. As the first light of dawn broke across the horizon, painting the sky in shades of pink and lavender, the village remained wrapped in its morning stillness. Birds began to sing softly from the trees, heralding the start of another day. The air was cool and fresh, carrying the faint scent of dew on the grass and the earthy aroma of the nearby woods. It was in these early hours, when the world was still half dreaming, that the candlemaker began his work. The workshop, with its wooden beams and stone walls, stood as a silent witness to the generations of craft that had been passed through its doors. The familiar smell of melting beeswax filled the air as the candlemaker prepared his materials, moving with a steady rhythm that was as natural to him as breathing. He had been doing this for as long as he could remember. His father had taught him the craft, just as his father had before him. The movements were ingrained in his muscles, the process a part of him, like the beating of his heart. He didn't need to think about the next step. It came naturally, flowing from one action to the next in a seamless dance. The wicks were braided with care, each strand woven together to form a sturdy base for the candle. The wax was melted in the large iron pot, its golden color shimmering in the early light. The fire in the hearth crackled softly, adding its warmth to the room. There was a comfort in the routine, a quiet strength that came from knowing exactly what needed to be done. Every candle he made was an act of preservation, a way of holding on to the past while looking toward the future. It was in these small, repetitive tasks that the candlemaker found a deep sense of purpose. Each dip of the wick into the molten wax was a step in the continuity of his work, a promise to keep the tradition alive. He often thought of the many generations of men who had stood where he stood now, making candles with the same steady hands in the same quiet workshop. There was a certain reverence in the act, a recognition that this craft was more than just a job. It was a way of connecting with something greater than oneself. As the day wore on, the candles began to take shape, their smooth, golden surfaces, reflecting the light from the hearth. The candle maker worked steadily, knowing that each one would soon be carried to a home, lighting the way for someone in the darkness. The thought of his candles providing warmth and light to the villagers filled him with a quiet pride. It was a simple thing, but it was enough. In a world that often seemed chaotic and unpredictable, there was a peace in knowing that he could offer something constant, something reliable. The process was soothing, almost meditative. The rhythmic dipping of the wick, the gentle scraping of the wax, the crackling of the fire, it was a symphony of small sounds that played in harmony, each one adding to the sense of calm that filled the room. The candle maker's mind wandered. As his hands worked, he thought about the changing seasons, about the families who would soon gather around their hearths, the light from his candles casting soft shadows on the walls. He thought about the young children who would grow up in this village, learning the same craft, passing it on to their own children. The circle of life seemed to unfold in these quiet moments, each generation adding to the tapestry of history. As the sun reached its zenith and the workshop grew warmer, the candle maker took a break, stepping outside for a breath of fresh air. The village was just waking up, the streets beginning to hum with activity as people went about their daily tasks. He could hear the sound of carts rumbling down the road, the laughter of children playing in the distance. It was a comforting sound, the pulse of life continuing in its steady rhythm. The candle maker stood for a moment, taking in the scene, before turning back to his workshop. The work was waiting, and there was no time to waste. Inside, the candles were almost finished, their golden forms resting on the wooden shelves, ready to be sold or carried to the homes of those who needed them. The candle maker smiled as he surveyed his work, a deep sense of satisfaction settling over him. It was the quiet moments like this, when the work was done and the world outside seemed to pause for a breath, that he truly felt the weight of the tradition he was carrying. It was in these small acts, these repeated gestures, that the legacy of his craft was preserved. And as he looked at the candles he had made, he felt a deep connection to the past, to the men who had come before him, and to the future that was yet to come. He knew that his work was part of something larger, something timeless. The steady rhythm of the work, the unhurried pace, the quiet strength of routine, it was all part of the fabric of life, a thread woven through the generations. The candle maker returned to his work, dipping the wicks once again into the molten wax, feeling the warmth of the fire and the weight of the tradition in his hands. There was a quiet power in the act, a sense of fulfillment that came from knowing that his work mattered. Each candle he made was a small contribution to the world, a way of bringing light into the darkness. And as the day drew to a close and the last candle was finished, the candle maker felt a deep sense of peace. He had completed his work, and tomorrow he would do it again. The routine would continue, steady and unwavering, like the flame of a candle that never faltered, no matter how dark the night. As twilight descended upon the village, the cool evening air filled with the faintest whisper of the coming night. The last rays of the sun were barely visible, casting a soft glow that seemed to linger on the horizon like a memory before being swallowed by the vast stretch of darkness. In the candle maker's workshop, the room was still, save for the steady rhythm of his hands as he worked. His practiced movements were slow and deliberate, each dip of the wick into the warm wax bringing another candle to life, another promise of light against the encroaching night. Outside, the village was quieting, the sounds of everyday life softening as people prepared for the night ahead. The hum of the day had faded into a gentle murmur, a soundscape that belonged only to the hours just before sleep. The candlemaker, however, was not affected by the passing hours. His world was one of consistency, one of steady labor that allowed him to mark time without feeling its weight. He worked because it was what he knew, what had been passed down to him through the generations. His hands were familiar with the task, his mind unworried, knowing that each candle, though small, had its purpose. As the workshop darkened and the last embers in the hearth glowed faintly, a quiet stillness fell over the candlemaker, who took a brief pause to look out the window. The moon had risen high above the rooftops, casting a silver sheen over the village. The stars blinked faintly, their distant light nothing more than silent witnesses to the passing of time. The candlemaker's gaze lingered on the night sky for a moment longer before he turned back to his work. It was not out of a sense of urgency that he continued, but rather out of the deep comfort that came with the process. To make candles was to be a part of something larger than oneself. It was to be woven into the fabric of the world, an ever-present light against the dark. Each candle, though simple in its creation, held within it the promise of warmth, of safety, and of rest. They were small beacons in a world that too often leaned toward darkness. His hands moved in familiar patterns, cutting wicks, melting wax, and carefully shaping the candles that would soon be ready to provide their soft light to the homes of the village. The steady hum of his work created a soft rhythm that felt like a lullaby, calming and soothing. Every sound, the quiet scrape of the wax, the gentle crackling of the fire, the hiss of the molten wax came together in a song of peace. It was the type of quiet that filled the soul and slowed the pulse, reminding anyone who listened that there was beauty in the small moments. As the candles grew in number, the room seemed to glow with the soft golden hue of the wax. Though there was no flame yet, there was something about the warmth of the room that spoke to the potential of the candles. Each one stood as a promise, waiting for the moment when it would fulfill its purpose. But not yet. Not until the evening had settled fully into night, and the village had retreated into its quiet solitude. The candlemaker's mind drifted back to his younger days, when he had watched his father work in this very same workshop, the same slow, steady rhythm filling the room. He could remember how it had felt to stand beside his father, learning each movement, each small act that went into the making of the candles. He had felt then, as he did now, that the work was more than just a craft. It was a way of connecting to something larger, to a tradition that stretched back through time. His father had been a silent man, not one for many words, but there had been something in the way he worked that spoke volumes. It was in the care he took with each candle, the precision of his movements, the stillness of his mind as he focused on his task. The candlemaker had learned that the beauty of his craft was not in the finished product alone, but in the quiet dedication that went into its creation. The candle was a reflection of its maker, a testament to the patience and skill of the hands that shaped it. And so, the candlemaker continued, his hands working in the dim light, the room growing quieter as the last flicker of daylight faded into the night. His movements were the same as they had always been, each one flowing smoothly into the next, creating a rhythm that echoed the pulse of the world itself. As the final candle was completed and placed alongside the others, the candlemaker paused to look at his work. The small candles, each one identical in their simple beauty, filled the room with a sense of accomplishment. There was no fanfare, no grand moment of recognition. The work was its own reward, and that was enough. As the village outside grew darker and quieter, the candlemaker felt the weight of the silence pressing in on him. The solitude of the workshop filling him with a deep sense of peace. The candles, though still unlit, had already begun to fulfill their purpose. They would provide warmth and light to the homes of the villagers, guiding them through the long hours of the night. And in their soft glow, the candlemaker would find the quiet strength that came from knowing that his work, though small, mattered. The room was now fully dark, the fire in the hearth fading to embers. The candlemaker stood, stretching his tired limbs, and moved toward the door. His work was done for the night. But as he stepped out into the cool night air, the peace of the village wrapping around him like a blanket, he felt a deep connection to the world around him. A silent watcher of the night, the candlemaker was content. The steady rhythm of his work would continue, day after day, night after night. It was his quiet contribution to the world, a flicker of light in the darkness, a simple act of creation that had been passed down through generations. And as the moon rose higher in the sky, casting its pale light over the village, the candlemaker knew that the rhythm of his work would continue, steady and unbroken, just as it always had been. And the village lay in the quiet embrace of the night, its silence unbroken, except for the gentle sounds of nature settling into rest. A faint breeze stirred the leaves of the trees, whispering secrets of the day that had passed, while the distant calls of nocturnal creatures echoed softly in the darkened air. Within the candlemaker's workshop, the steady rhythm of his work continued, a timeless act of creation that seemed to belong to the very fabric of the world. Each movement of his hands was precise, deliberate, and practiced his years of experience guiding him through the familiar motions that made up the steady process of shaping the candles. As he dipped the wicks into the molten wax, the familiar scent of beeswax filled the air, mingling with the soft, earthy aroma of the tallow. The room, bathed in the warm glow of the hearth fire, seemed to pulse with a quiet energy, as though the work of the candlemaker was not just the shaping of wax and wick, but the shaping of time itself. In the stillness of the workshop, the outside world seemed to fade away. The sun had long set, and the last remnants of daylight had been swallowed by the night. Yet the candlemaker continued, as steady and unhurried as ever. His movements were not marked by urgency or impatience, but by a quiet determination, a deep understanding that his work, though simple, was a vital part of the village's life. He could sense the passing of time in the steady rhythm of his work, the way each candle came into being, one dip of the wick at a time. The sound of the wax, as it coated the wick with each immersion, was a steady, soothing noise, like a lullaby sung by the night itself. It was a sound that told a story of a time before, of a time long past, and of a time that would continue long after. The candlemaker paused for a moment, lifting his gaze to the window. The moon hung high in the sky, its pale light casting a soft glow over the village. The stars twinkled faintly, distant sentinels watching over the peaceful landscape below. For a brief moment, the candlemaker allowed himself to be still, to take in the beauty of the night. The world outside seemed at peace, and he felt a quiet contentment settle over him. It was a reminder of the cyclical nature of time, the way the days and nights passed, each one connected to the next, each one a part of the larger story of the village, of the world. And in that moment, the candlemaker understood that he was a keeper of that time, a small but essential part of the world's rhythm. His candles were not just sources of light, but beacons that marked the passage of time. They would shine in homes, lighting the way for families, guiding them through the hours of darkness. And with each candle he made, he contributed to the continuity of that light, a light that had been passed down through generations. The soft crackle of the fire in the hearth was a comforting sound, one that had accompanied the candlemaker through countless nights. It was a sound that carried with it the weight of tradition, a reminder that this simple craft had been practiced for centuries. each candle an echo of those who had come before. The workshop, filled with the scent of wax and tallow, seemed to hold the memories of all the hands that had shaped candles before him, his father, his grandfather, and those who had taught them. It was as though the very walls of the room carried the stories of their lives, of the generations who had worked with the same materials, in the same quiet rhythm. He thought of the people who would soon use the candles, the families in the village, the farmers, the merchants, the children. They would light their candles each night, and the warm glow would fill their homes, casting shadows on the walls, illuminating their faces as they sat around their tables, shared their meals, and told their stories. The candle maker knew that his work would bring comfort to these people, that his candles would light the path through the long, dark winter nights. It was a humble but vital role, one that connected him to the heartbeat of the village, to the very essence of what made their lives meaningful. As he worked, his hands steady and sure, the candle maker felt a deep sense of gratitude for the simple act of creating light. In a world that could sometimes feel uncertain and dark, he knew that the flicker of a candle was a small but important act of hope. It was a symbol of warmth and safety, a reminder that even in the darkest hours, there was always a light to guide the way. The passage of time could never erase the importance of such acts. The world outside continued its quiet slumber, the village at peace. The candle maker worked on, his hands moving in a rhythmic dance with the wax, the firelight casting long shadows across the room. Each candle was a reflection of his dedication, a testament to the quiet strength of his craft. And as he placed the finished candles on the wooden shelves, ready to be taken to the homes of the villagers, he knew that his work was done for the night. The candles would stand as silent sentinels in the homes of those who would need them, guiding them through the long hours of darkness. The village would wake in the morning, and the sun would rise again. But for now, the night was his, and the quiet rhythm of his work had become the pulse of time itself. The candle maker, the keeper of time, looked out once more at the moonlit landscape, feeling a deep sense of peace settle over him. The world outside was still, and the candles he had made would carry the promise of light into the night. In the quiet of the workshop, the sound of the dipping wicks into wax was the last reminder of the work that had been done, of the light that had been created. It was a sound that would echo in the stillness of the night, a gentle reminder of the passage of time and the role of the keeper of time, the one who made the light that would guide the way. The candle maker turned back to his workbench, the last of the candles waiting to be shaped, and with steady hands he continued, knowing that in each candle he created, he was marking the passage of time, one flicker of light at a time. The village lay in the quiet embrace of the night, its silence unbroken except for the gentle sounds of nature settling into rest. A faint breeze stirred the leaves of the trees, whispering secrets of the day that had passed, while the distant calls of nocturnal creatures echoed softly in the darkened air. Within the candle maker's workshop, the steady rhythm of his work continued, a timeless act of creation that seemed to belong to the very fabric of the world. Each movement of his hands was precise, deliberate, and practiced his years of experience guiding him through the familiar motions that made up the steady process of shaping the candles. As he dipped the wicks into the molten wax, the familiar scent of beeswax filled the air, mingling with the soft, earthy aroma of the tallow. The room, bathed in the warm glow of the hearth fire, seemed to pulse with a quiet energy, as though the work of the candle maker was not just the shaping of wax and wick, but the shaping of time itself. In the stillness of the workshop, the outside world seemed to fade away. The sun had long set, and the last remnants of daylight had been swallowed by the night. Yet the candle maker continued, as steady and unhurried as ever. His movements were not marked by urgency or impatience, but by a quiet determination, a deep understanding that his work, though simple, was a vital part of the village's life. He could sense the passing of time in the steady rhythm of his work, the way each candle came into being, one dip of the wick at a time. The sound of the wax, as it coated the wick with each immersion, was a steady, soothing noise, like a lullaby sung by the night itself. It was a sound that told a story of a time before, of a time long past, and of a time that would continue long after. The candlemaker paused for a moment, lifting his gaze to the window. The moon hung high in the sky, its pale light casting a soft glow over the village. The stars twinkled faintly, distant sentinels watching over the peaceful landscape below. For a brief moment, the candlemaker allowed himself to be still, to take in the beauty of the night. The world outside seemed at peace, and he felt a quiet contentment settle over him. It was a reminder of the cyclical nature of time, the way the days and nights passed, each one connected to the next, each one a part of the larger story of the village, of the world. And in that moment, the candlemaker understood that he was a keeper of that time, a small but essential part of the world's rhythm. His candles were not just sources of light, but beacons that marked the passage of time. They would shine in homes, lighting the way for families, guiding them through the hours of darkness. And with each candle he made, he contributed to the continuity of that light, a light that had been passed down through generations. The soft crackle of the fire in the hearth was a comforting sound, one that had accompanied the candlemaker through countless nights. It was a sound that carried with it the weight of tradition, a reminder that this simple craft had been practiced for centuries, each candle an echo of those who had come before. The workshop, filled with the scent of wax and tallow, seemed to hold the memories of all the hands that had shaped candles before him, his father, his grandfather, and those who had taught them. It was as though the very walls of the room carried the stories of their lives, of the generations who had worked with the same materials, in the same quiet rhythm. He thought of the people who would soon use the candles, the families in the village, the farmers, the merchants, the children. They would light their candles each night, and the warm glow would fill their homes, casting shadows on the walls, illuminating their faces as they sat around their tables, shared their meals, and told their stories. The candlemaker knew that his work would bring comfort to these people, that his candles would light the path through the long, dark winter nights. It was a humble but vital role, one that connected him to the heartbeat of the village, to the very essence of what made their lives meaningful. As he worked, his hands steady and sure, the candlemaker felt a deep sense of gratitude for the simple act of creating light. In a world that could sometimes feel uncertain and dark, he knew that the flicker of a candle was a small but important act of hope. It was a symbol of warmth and safety, a reminder that even in the darkest hours, there was always a light to guide the way. The passage of time could never erase the importance of such acts. The world outside continued its quiet slumber, the village at peace. The candlemaker worked on, his hands moving in a rhythmic dance with the wax, the firelight casting long shadows across the room. Each candle was a reflection of his dedication, a testament to the quiet strength of his craft. And as he placed the finished candles on the wooden shelves, ready to be taken to the homes of the villagers, he knew that his work was done for the night. The candles would stand as silent sentinels in the homes of those who would need them, guiding them through the long hours of darkness. The village would wake in the morning, and the sun would rise again. But for now, the night was his, and the quiet rhythm of his work had become the pulse of time itself. The candlemaker, the keeper of time, looked out once more at the moonlit landscape, feeling a deep sense of peace settle over him. The world outside was still, and the candles he had made would carry the promise of light into the night. In the quiet of the workshop, the sound of the dipping wicks into wax was the last reminder of the work that had been done, of the light that had been created. It was a sound that would echo in the stillness of the night, a gentle reminder of the passage of time and the role of the keeper of time, the one who made the light that would guide the way. The candle maker turned back to his workbench, the last of the candles waiting to be shaped, and with steady hands he continued, knowing that in each candle he created, he was marking the passage of time, one flicker of light at a time. As the village outside drifted deeper into the comfort of the night, the candle maker continued his quiet work, his hands moving steadily as they had for years. The air inside the workshop was thick with the comforting scent of beeswax, the faintest trace of tallow mixing with the smoke from the hearth. The warmth of the fire flickered in the corner, casting shadows that seemed to dance along the rough wooden walls and ceiling beams. The candles, now finished, were arranged neatly on the shelves, their soft glow casting a warm and gentle light across the room. The workshop was a sanctuary of peace, an island of light in a world that was steadily being consumed by darkness. Each dip of the wick into the molten wax brought with it a new creation, a slender pillar of light that would soon find its place in homes across the village. It was a rhythm that never faltered, a steady flow of motion that brought solace to the candle maker and those around him. The quiet sounds of his work, the gentle snip of scissors, the rhythmic scrape of wax, the soft crackle of the fire, formed a comforting symphony, a lullaby that accompanied the fading light outside. He paused for a moment, wiping the sweat from his brow, his eyes lingering on the flames. They seemed to flicker in unison with his thoughts, dancing and swaying in the quiet solitude of the workshop. He could feel the hours slipping away, time becoming a fluid thing that moved with the slow, deliberate pace of his craft. Outside, the night sky had deepened into a blanket of inky blackness, the moon now a silver sliver in the sky, its soft light filtering through the small window. The village, bathed in moonlight, was silent, except for the occasional rustle of leaves stirred by a gentle breeze. It was a quiet night, one of those rare evenings when the world seemed to pause, holding its breath in reverence for the stillness that had settled over it. Inside the workshop, the candlemaker allowed himself to be carried away by the peace of the moment. He felt no rush, no desire to finish the work quickly. The task was not one to be hurried, not when each candle was a small act of creation, a small gift of light to the world. His hands moved with practiced ease, dipping the wicks into the molten wax, each motion a steady and unhurried part of the whole. With every candle he created, he was offering something more than just light. He was offering comfort, warmth, and peace. It was a simple thing, but it was essential, and in that quiet solitude, he found a deep sense of fulfillment. The fire crackled softly, the flames casting flickering shadows on the stone walls. The room seemed to breathe with the same rhythm as the candlemaker's work, a slow, steady pulse that filled the space with a sense of calm. He paused for a moment to survey the room, the neat rows of candles glistening softly in the dim light. Each one was a small testament to the work he had done, a promise of warmth and light to those who would soon receive them. It was a quiet satisfaction, one that did not require recognition or praise. The act of creating these simple objects of light was enough. As he returned to his work, the outside world seemed to fade away. There was no rush, no hurry to finish. The night would stretch on, and so would his work, each movement slow and deliberate. Each candle added to the row a small piece of light for the world outside. The world beyond the workshop was silent, save for the sounds of nature and the occasional creak of the trees swaying in the wind. The candlemaker worked on, his hands moving with the steady, rhythmic pace that had become second nature to him. Time seemed to lose all meaning in the quiet of the night. The act of creation was all that mattered now. He had long since lost track of the hours, And it didn't matter. The night, with its quiet beauty, was a perfect companion to the task at hand. Outside, the stars twinkled faintly, like distant lanterns in the vastness of the sky, offering their own form of illumination. It was a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there was always light to be found, even if it was as small and humble as a flickering candle in the window. The candle maker's work continued, the rhythm of his movements a steady heartbeat. In the quiet workshop, the fire continued to burn, its warmth and light filling the room. As the candles began to pile up on the shelves, he allowed himself a brief moment of rest, his gaze turning once again to the window. The moon had risen higher in the sky now, its light brighter against the backdrop of the darkened village. The peace of the night filled the air, and for a moment the candlemaker felt himself become part of it, as though he were no longer separate from the world around him, but rather a part of its quiet pulse. He was the creator of light, the keeper of warmth, and in that simple role, he found a sense of belonging, a connection to the world that was far deeper than anything words could convey. The world outside was quiet, and inside, in his small workshop, the candlemaker was at peace. There was no need for anything more. The world had been set to rest, and he, too, could rest in the knowledge that his work was done for the night. He wiped his hands on the cloth beside him, the work complete for now, and took a moment to simply sit in the quiet, listening to the crackle of the fire, the soft flickering of the candles, and the stillness of the world outside. The night had embraced him, and in return, he had given the night his light. In the quiet of that moment, the candlemaker found a deep and lasting peace, a peace that came not from the outside world, but from the steady rhythm of his own work, the light that he had created, and the knowledge that in a small way, he had brought light to the world. The workshop was still, the night was deep, and in that silence, the candlemaker found his place. As the deep silence of night enveloped the village, the candlemaker continued his work. Each dip of the wick into the molten wax, a reminder of his commitment to a craft passed down through generations. His hands, weathered by years of labor, yet still steady, moved with practiced ease, shaping the slender candles with the same care and precision he had learned as a child, watching his own father in the same workshop, in the same soft glow of flickering firelight. The warmth from the hearth caressed the room, while the soft crackling of burning wood blended with the rhythmic plopping sound of the wax as the wick was submerged into its molten depths. This dance of light and shadow was not new, it was an ancient tradition, carried forward in the steady hands of those who had come before. Outside, the world was still. The moon shone brightly, casting a pale, silvery light over the village rooftops, and the only sound that could be heard was the faint rustle of leaves stirred by a cool evening breeze. The village, though asleep, was filled with the lingering warmth of the candlemaker's efforts. He worked in the solitude of his small, humble workshop, where time seemed to slow with each movement. His mind wandered to the many hours he had spent here, watching the days pass and the seasons change, yet the work remained constant, as reliable as the rhythm of his breathing. Each candle was more than a mere creation. It was a beacon, a promise, a small gift to those who would one day light it, chasing away the darkness, bringing warmth and comfort to the cold, quiet nights. The village outside may have been still, but inside the workshop, the candlemaker's heart beat steadily in sync with the flow of his work. The fire flickered, casting a warm golden hue on the walls, and the wax, as it solidified, took on a sheen that glimmered softly in the flickering. Light. He paused briefly to inspect the candles, each one standing tall on its wooden rack, a symbol of care and patience, waiting to be carried into homes where they would fulfill their humble purpose. It was in moments like this that the candlemaker felt the true weight of his legacy, a legacy not just of craft, but of tradition, of light, and of care. His hands had shaped the light that would soon guide others through the darkness, offering comfort, peace, and security. And in that quiet knowledge, the weight of the world seemed to lift from his shoulders, replaced by a quiet sense of fulfillment that filled the room like the warmth of the fire itself. As he worked, his mind drifted back to the teachings of his father, who had often spoken of the importance of this craft, not just as a means of livelihood, but as a way of life. The act of making candles was, in a sense, an act of service to provide for others, to offer light when there was none, to give warmth in the coldest of nights. It was a responsibility that the candle maker had never taken lightly. With each wick dipped into the wax, with each candle shaped and placed carefully upon the rack, he was fulfilling that purpose, continuing a tradition that had long been a part of his family's history. Outside, the night had deepened, and the stars above seemed to flicker like the flames he so carefully nurtured. The quiet village was enveloped in a peaceful stillness, the kind that only the dead of night could offer. The candle maker, with his steady hands and unwavering dedication, was at peace with the world. The gentle sound of his work filled the space, a soft symphony that played out in time with the quiet heartbeat of the night. He could hear the fire crackling, the wax cooling, the occasional creak of the old wooden beams above him. It was a rhythm that calmed his mind, soothed his soul, and reminded him of the deep connection he felt to this place, to this craft, and to the generations of candle makers who had come before him. In the flickering light of the hearth, the candle maker paused once again, allowing himself a moment to reflect. The candles, now resting on their wooden racks, were more than just creations. They were symbols of the life he had chosen, the life he had inherited. They were a testament to the quiet legacy of his family, a legacy that would continue long after he was gone, carried forward in the steady hands of those who would come after him. His work, though humble, was part of something much larger, something eternal. And in that thought, he found a deep sense of peace. He had done his part. The world outside could wait. For now, there was only the quiet work, the steady rhythm of his hands, the soft glow of the fire, and the steady promise of light that would soon fill the homes of the village. The candles were ready. The work was done. And in that quiet moment, as the night pressed in around him, the candle maker allowed himself to rest, knowing that his legacy, though simple, was as enduring as the light he had created. The candles, each one a small flicker of hope and warmth, would continue to shine long after the fire had burned out, long after the village had fallen silent, long after the candle maker's work was done. As the first light of dawn began to stretch across the horizon, casting pale rays through the small window of the candle maker's workshop, there was a stillness in the air that seemed to echo the peace that had filled the room the night before. The candles, now fully formed and resting neatly on their wooden shelves, awaited the moment they would be carried out into the world, ready to offer their gentle glow and warmth to the villagers who would soon rise from their slumber. The candle maker, standing in the soft light of the morning, took a moment to reflect on the simple yet profound nature of his craft. It was a labor of love passed down through the generations, a quiet tradition that had shaped the rhythms of his life. The soft crackling of the fire from the hearth was the only sound that broke the silence, its embers still glowing warmly, providing a steady source of light and warmth as the day slowly began. For a moment, the candle maker closed his eyes and allowed himself to be enveloped in the stillness of the room. It was a familiar feeling, one he had experienced countless times, yet it never failed to bring him a sense of peace. The weight of his work, the legacy of his ancestors, was both humbling, grounding. It reminded him that he was part of something larger than himself, a thread woven into the fabric of a long-standing tradition that had spanned centuries. He had spent his life shaping candles, each one crafted with care and precision, each one a small beacon of light in a world that was often overshadowed by darkness. His hands, though weathered and calloused from years of labor, still moved with the same steady rhythm they had when he first began his apprenticeship. The repetition of the work, the steady rhythm of dipping wicks into molten wax, the careful shaping of each candle was more than just a task, it was a meditation. Each movement was deliberate, each flicker of the candle's flame a reminder of the quiet power of light. As he worked, the candle maker often found himself lost in thought, his mind wandering to the days when he had been taught this craft by his father. He remembered the patient lessons, the steady hands guiding him as he learned the delicate art of candle making. His father had been a quiet man, a man of few words, but his wisdom had been profound. It was through him that the candle maker had come to understand the true significance of the craft. It was not merely about creating something useful, something functional. It was about providing light in the darkness, about offering warmth and comfort to those who needed it most. The candle maker smiled to himself as he thought about his father, now long gone, but whose presence still lingered in the workshop. The memories of those early days were as vivid as ever, and they brought him a sense of solace. He could almost hear his father's voice, the quiet instructions, the words of encouragement that had shaped him into the craftsman he was today. His father had taught him not just the techniques of the craft, but the heart of it, the importance of patience, of taking time to perfect each candle, of never rushing the work. A good candle, his father had said, is a reflection of its maker. It holds the light, the warmth, the care that you put into it. The candle maker had carried those words with him throughout his life, and they had become the foundation of his work. The candles he made were not just objects, they were expressions of his soul, his connection to the past, and his hopes for the future. As the day wore on and the sun climbed higher in the sky, the workshop came alive with the familiar sounds of the candle maker's work. The rhythmic dipping of wicks into wax, the soft scrape of a knife as he trimmed the edges of the candles. The crackling of the fire each sound was a part of the symphony of creation that filled the room. The work was steady, unhurried, and in its simplicity, it held a deep beauty. Each candle was a small act of devotion, a quiet offering to the world. The candle maker was fully immersed in his work when the sound of footsteps broke the stillness. He looked up to see his young apprentice, a boy no older than he had been when he first began his training, standing in the doorway. The boy had been with him for several years now, learning the craft and carrying on the traditions that had been passed down through generations. The candle maker smiled and motioned for him to come in. The apprentice had a natural talent, a steady hand, and a quiet dedication that reminded the candle maker of himself when he had been young. He could see in the boy the same passion for the craft that had driven him all those years ago. The apprentice had learned quickly, and his progress had been impressive. But the candle maker knew that the true essence of the craft was not in the speed with which one learned, but in the patience with which one worked. He had seen many young apprentices come and go over the years, eager to rush through the process, eager to make a name for themselves. But those who truly succeeded in the craft were the ones who took their time, who understood the importance of each step, who knew that the true value of a candle was not just in its appearance, but in the care and attention that went into making it. As the day drew to a close and the last candles were placed on the racks to cool, the candle maker and his apprentice stood side by side, taking in the quiet beauty of the room. The warm glow of the candles filled the space, casting soft shadows. On the walls, the air was thick with the scent of beeswax, a comforting, familiar smell that had been a part of the candle maker's life for as long as he could remember. The apprentice spoke quietly, his voice filled with a sense of reverence. "These candles will bring light to many homes tonight," he said. The candle maker nodded, his heart swelling with pride. "Yes," he replied, "and with each light, we carry forward the legacy of those who came before us." They stood in silence for a moment, looking at the candles, at the work they had done, the light they had created, the tradition they were continuing. The quiet legacy of the candle maker's family, passed down through the generations, would live on in each flicker of flame, in each soft glow that filled the homes of the villagers. And as the last rays of the setting sun cast their golden light on the workshop, the candle maker knew that his work, though simple, would continue to shine brightly, like the flame of a candle, for generations to come. As the seasons shifted and the years passed, the candle maker found himself reflecting on the journey of his craft, tracing the arc of his life from the days of apprenticeship to his present position as the master of the workshop. The workshop, once a small, humble space, had grown over the years, filled with tools and memories, each one a testament to the years of dedication and hard work. The walls were adorned with faint impressions of past generations, small marks on the wooden, beams that told the story of a family's devotion to the art of candle making. The candle maker had never thought of himself as anything more than a humble artisan, but as he stood in the heart of the workshop, he realized that his work had become something far greater than that. It was a legacy, a tradition passed down, from father to son, from one generation to the next, and he could see now, in the soft glow of the candles that filled the room, how his own life had become intertwined with that of his ancestors. The delicate flicker of the flames seemed to carry the weight of centuries of history, of families gathered in their homes, of quiet moments shared in the warmth of light. He had been just a small part of that ongoing cycle, yet he had given it his all, pouring his heart and soul into every candle he had ever made. It was a quiet, simple life, but it was one that had brought him immeasurable satisfaction, knowing that his work had touched the lives of so many. The sun was beginning to dip below the horizon, casting a warm golden light across the workshop. The candle maker worked steadily, his hands moving with practiced ease as he prepared the next batch of candles. The process had become second nature to him. The dipping of wicks, the swirling of wax, the shaping of each candle with the precision of a master craftsman. Each candle, though small and unassuming, held within it a promise of light and warmth, a symbol of hope in a world that often felt dark and uncertain. As he worked, his thoughts drifted to the apprentice who had joined him in the workshop years ago. The young boy had grown into a capable craftsman, his hands steady and sure, his skills honed over countless hours of practice. The apprentice had become more than just a helper. He had become a trusted partner, someone who understood the nuances of the craft, as well as the candle maker himself. Together, they had built something special, a bond that went beyond the work itself. The apprentice had become like a son to him, carrying the weight of the tradition and the knowledge that had been passed down to him. And now, the time had come for the apprentice to take over the workshop, to carry the flame forward into the future. The thought filled the candle maker with a sense of both pride and bittersweet sorrow. He had spent his life shaping light, but now it was time to pass that responsibility on to the next generation. It was a natural progression, one that had been foretold long ago by his father and his father before him. The cycle continued, unbroken, like the steady rhythm of the wicks, being dipped into wax, like the flickering of the flame that would never go out. The candle maker took a deep breath and stepped back from his workbench, looking around the workshop one last time. The walls were lined with shelves filled with candles of all shapes and sizes, each one a small, glowing testament to the years of work that had gone into creating them. The hearth crackled softly, sending up occasional sparks as the fire slowly began to die down. The room was bathed in the warm, golden light of the candles, a soft glow that seemed to fill the space with A quiet peace. The candlemaker's eyes fell on the apprentice, who was working diligently at the other end of the room, his hands moving in the same steady rhythm that the candlemaker had once known so well. There was a pride in the old man's heart as he watched the boy work, knowing that the future of the workshop was in good hands. The apprentice looked up from his task, catching the candlemaker's gaze. A silent understanding passed between them, a shared moment of recognition. The apprentice had become the master now, ready to take the reins and carry on the work that had been passed down to him. The old man nodded, his heart full of gratitude and love for the young boy who had grown into a man, for the boy who would now carry on the legacy of the craft. It was time for the apprentice to step into the role that had once been his, to become the new keeper of the light. And with that, the candlemaker turned his gaze toward the horizon, where the last remnants of the sunset were fading into the night. The world outside was quiet now, the village settling into a peaceful stillness as the last of the day's light disappeared from view. The moon had begun to rise, casting a pale glow over the rooftops and fields. The candlemaker knew that his work was done, that the time had come to let go. But as he stood there, bathed in the soft light of the candles, he knew that the flame would never truly go out. It would live on in the work of the apprentice, in the work of the generations to come. And for that, he was grateful. For even as the night descended, bringing with it a blanket of darkness, the light would remain steadily, quietly, unyielding. The last candle had been lit, and the workshop was ready for its new chapter. The old man took one final look at the room, his heart full of pride and peace. And with that, he stepped out into the night, knowing that the light would never fade as long as the tradition lived on. As the first whispers of dawn touched the horizon, the village lay still, embraced by the deep, soothing quiet that had settled like a blanket over its cottages and fields. The workshop, now empty, stood as a testament to decades of craftsmanship, tradition, and the simple beauty of a life spent in pursuit of light. The candlemaker, now an old man, stood outside the familiar wooden door, his eyes resting on the building that had been his life's work. A steady breeze rustled the leaves of the nearby trees, carrying with it the fresh scent of early morning dew. The world around him was still shrouded in the gentle haze of twilight, but there was something else in the air, something that spoke of change, of endings and new beginnings. The apprentice, the young boy who had once looked up to him as a mentor and father, now stood at the door, his posture confident, his hands steady with the knowledge that had been passed down to him through years of hard work. He had become the keeper of the flame, the one who would carry on the tradition, and in his eyes, the old man could see the reflection of himself, a mirror of the past, but with a future that lay bright and untold. The old candlemaker felt a sense of peace, knowing that the flame would never be extinguished, for it had already been passed on, nestled safely in the hands of someone who had grown under his care and tutelage. His heart swelled with pride, not only for the work that had been done, but for the legacy that would continue, generation after generation, in this very workshop. It was a legacy not defined by grand gestures or monumental moments, but by the quiet consistency of everyday actions, the steady rhythm of hands dipping wicks into molten wax, the flicker of light in a world that often felt dark. And as he took one last look at the familiar room, the shelves lined with candles, each one a unique creation, the warmth of the hearth that had always been his companion, the walls bearing the marks of countless years of toil and care, he knew that this was the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. The old man's hands trembled slightly as he touched the doorframe one last time, feeling the roughness of the wood beneath his fingers, a texture that had come to symbolize both the passing of time and the steadiness of his life's work. It was in these small, almost imperceptible moments that the true value of a life was measured. He had not sought fame or recognition, but the simple satisfaction of knowing that his craft had provided warmth and light to those who needed it most. In the quiet moments of reflection, the candlemaker realized that the true magic of his work had always been in the light he created, not for himself, but for others. The warmth that emanated from a candle was not just physical. It was the warmth of a home, the light of hope in the midst of uncertainty, the quiet moments shared between loved ones, gathered together in the soft glow of the flame. He had spent his life creating this light, and now it was time to pass it on. With a deep breath, the old man turned to the apprentice, the young man who had already begun to carry the torch. "It's yours now," he said softly, his voice filled with the weight of years. "Take care of it. Take care of them." The apprentice nodded, his eyes meeting the old man's with a silent understanding. No words were needed. The apprentice had seen the candlemaker's life, had watched him work day after day, had learned from him not just the art of candle making, but the deeper lessons of patience, dedication, and quiet pride. The old man smiled, his heart at ease, knowing that the work he had started so many years ago would continue, that the hands of the future would carry it forward with the same care and commitment. The sun was now rising higher in the sky, casting a warm, golden light across the landscape. The birds had begun their morning songs, filling the air with their soft, melodic calls. The world was waking up, just as the workshop and the legacy within it had done for so many years. The apprentice, now the master, stepped forward, his hands moving toward the door of the workshop. It was time to step inside, to begin the next chapter. The old man watched him go, his heart swelling with pride, but there was no sadness, only the quiet certainty that this was how it was meant to be. The work would continue, the tradition would live on, and the light would never fade. He had created something enduring, something that would last far beyond his own time, a flame that would continue to burn brightly for generations to come. And with that thought, the candlemaker turned, walking away from the workshop for the last time, his heart full of peace, knowing that the legacy of his craft, of his life, would never be extinguished. The apprentice, the new master, would keep the light burning, not just for today, but for all the days to come. The old man had done his part. The light, the flame, would carry on.